Most English learners do not get lost because they have no English. They get lost because their mind has no map. You understand English, you know words, you have studied grammar, but when someone asks you a question, your mind becomes crowded. Grammar comes, translation comes, fear comes, words come and disappear. You know what you want to say, but you do not know where to start, where to go next, or how to finish clearly. That is why your English becomes broken, not because you are weak, but because your thoughts have no direction. When you speak without a map, you pause, translate, repeat yourself, and lose confidence. But when your mind has a speaking map, everything becomes easier. You start with one clear point, you give a reason, you add an example, you connect your sentences. Then you finish with confidence. The English speaking map will teach you how to organize your thoughts before you speak, so your English sounds clear, smooth, and confident without getting lost in your own mind. Before we begin, subscribe to English Mindset Academy if you are serious about real English fluency, and in the comments write, "I will speak with a map." Now let us begin the English speaking map. Chapter 1. Why your mind gets lost when you speak English. Many English learners think their speaking problem is only a vocabulary problem, but very often the real problem is not that they have no words. The real problem is that their mind has no clear direction when it is time to speak. They understand English when they listen. They can read English sentences. They can study grammar rules. They may even know many useful words. But the moment someone asks them a question, their mind becomes crowded, confused, and heavy. Suddenly, the words that were easy while studying become difficult during speaking. The sentence that looked simple in a notebook becomes hard when the mouth has to say it in real time. This is one of the most painful experiences in English learning because the learner knows that the knowledge is somewhere inside. The words are not completely missing. The grammar is not completely unknown. The idea is not empty. But when pressure comes, everything feels mixed. The learner wants to speak, but the mind starts moving in too many directions at once. One part of the mind is searching for vocabulary. Another part is checking grammar. Another part is translating from the first language. Another part is worrying about pronunciation. Another part is afraid of making mistakes. Another part is thinking about what the listener will say. Because of all this pressure, the learner does not speak clearly. The learner gets lost inside their own mind. This is why you may feel that your English disappears when you need it most. It is not because you are foolish. It is not because you are weak. It is not because you cannot learn English. It is because speaking is not the same as understanding. Understanding English is easier because you are receiving language from someone else, but speaking English is harder because you must produce language by yourself. You must choose the idea, choose the words, build the sentence, control the grammar, pronounce the words, and continue the conversation, all at the same time. If your mind has no speaking map, this process becomes too heavy. Imagine walking in a big city without any road, sign, or map. You may have energy, you may have legs, you may even know the place you want to reach. But if you do not know which road to take, you will keep turning, stopping, and doubting yourself. This is exactly what happens in English speaking. You have thoughts, you have words, you have desire, but without a clear mental path, your answer becomes messy. You start speaking, then stop, you change the idea, you repeat yourself, you translate, you forget the next word, then your confidence drops because you feel lost. A speaking map gives your mind a road. It tells your brain what to do first, what to do next, and how to finish. Instead of thinking, what should I say, which grammar should I use, what if I make a mistake, your mind begins to follow a simple path. First, say the main point, then give the reason, then add an example, then connect the idea, then finish clearly. This simple map reduces pressure because your brain no longer needs to search in every direction. It only needs to take the next step. For example, if someone asks, "Why do you want to improve your English?" a learner without a map may say, "Because English is important and I want speak and also job and people and internet and I think English is good for future." The meaning is there, but the answer sounds broken because the thoughts are not organized. The learner is jumping from one idea to another without a clear road. Now listen to the same answer with a map. I want to improve my English because it helps me communicate more clearly. The main reason is that English gives me more confidence in study, work, and daily life. For example, if I can explain my ideas in English, I can speak with more people and understand more opportunities. That is why English is important for my future. This answer is not full of difficult words, but it sounds stronger because the thoughts move in order. This is the first golden truth of the English-speaking map. Your English becomes clearer when your thoughts have direction. Many learners try to fix speaking only by learning more words, but if the mind has no structure, even many words can become confusing. A person may know vocabulary but still speak in a messy way because the ideas do not follow a path. On the other hand, a learner with simple vocabulary can sound clear and confident if the answer has structure. Clear structure makes simple English powerful. When learners speak without a map, they often start in the wrong place. They begin with small details before saying the main point. They try to explain everything before the listener understands the basic idea. They give examples before giving the reason. They repeat the same sentence because they do not know how to move forward. This creates confusion not only for the listener but also for the speaker. The speaker starts feeling, I am not speaking well, and that feeling creates more pressure. Then the mind becomes even more blocked. This is why the first step is not speaking faster. The first step is speaking with direction. Speed without direction creates confusion. More words without direction create pressure. Advanced vocabulary without direction can sound unnatural, but simple English with direction sounds clear. When you know your speaking map, you can speak slowly and still sound confident because every sentence has a purpose. One sentence gives the main point. One sentence explains the reason. One sentence gives an example. One sentence finishes the idea. This is how speaking becomes organized. Many learners also get lost because they try to translate full sentences from their first language. Translation makes speaking slower because the brain first creates the idea in another language, then tries to change every word into English. This creates delay. It also creates unnatural sentence order because every language has its own structure. When you follow an English-speaking map, you stop depending so much on translation because your answer is built in English steps. You do not need to translate a full paragraph. You only need to follow the path: main point, reason, example, finish. For example, if someone asks, "Why is speaking English difficult?" do not first translate a long answer from your language. Use the map directly in English. Main point: speaking English is difficult because learners must think quickly. Reason: the reason is that they often translate before they speak. Example: for example, they know the answer in their mind, but they cannot build the English sentence fast enough. Finish: that is why speaking practice is important. This answer is clear, simple, and strong. You did not need perfect English. You needed a clear path. Another reason the mind gets lost is fear of mistakes. Many learners do not only think about English, they think about judgment. They worry that people will laugh. They worry that their accent is not good. They worry that their grammar is wrong. They worry that one mistake will make them look weak. Because of this fear, the brain becomes defensive. Instead of focusing on communication, it focuses on protection. The learner speaks less, stops more, and chooses only safe words. This makes English feel smaller than the learner's real thoughts. A speaking map helps reduce this fear because it gives you control. When you know how to start and how to continue, you feel less helpless. You may still make mistakes, but you will not be completely lost. If your sentence is not perfect, you can still return to the map. If you forget one word, you can explain the idea with another word. If your example is simple, it is still useful because it keeps the answer moving. The map does not promise perfect English, it gives you a way to continue. This is very important because real confidence does not come from never making mistakes. Real confidence comes from knowing that you can continue even when mistakes happen. A confident learner is not someone who speaks perfectly every time. A confident learner is someone who has a method. When the mind becomes confused, the method gives direction. When fear comes, the method gives stability. When words disappear, the method gives another step. This is why the English speaking map is not only a speaking technique, it is a confidence system. Think about how many times you stopped speaking because you did not know the next sentence. The problem was not always that you had no idea. The problem was that you did not know how to move from one sentence to another. You gave one sentence and then silence came. But with a map, silence becomes less scary because you know the next part. After the main point, give the reason. After the reason, give an example. After the example, finish with a clear result. This path helps you speak longer without forcing yourself. For example, if you say, "I want to improve my English," and then you stop, the answer feels too short. But if you follow the map, you continue naturally. I want to improve my English because I want to express my ideas more clearly. The main reason is that English is useful for learning, work, and communication. For example, if I can speak confidently, I can talk to more people and understand more content. That is why I want to practice every day. The answer becomes complete because the map carries you forward. Another common reason learners get lost is that they try to make the perfect sentence before speaking. They wait inside their mind, they edit silently, they search for the best word, they check grammar again and again, but conversation does not wait forever. The more they wait, the more pressure grows. Finally, they either say nothing or speak in a broken way. This habit is dangerous because it trains the mind to fear speaking. A speaking map helps because it gives you permission to start with a clear, simple sentence instead of waiting for a perfect one. Your first sentence does not need to be perfect, it needs to be clear. If the question is, do you like learning English? You can start with, yes, I like learning English because it helps me grow. That is enough. Then add the reason, then give an example, then finish. The answer becomes stronger step by step. Do not wait for the whole answer to become perfect before you begin. Start with the main point, and let the map build the rest. This is how fluent speakers often speak. They do not always prepare every word before speaking. They use mental patterns. They know how to open an answer. They know how to explain. They know how to give examples. They know how to close. Because these patterns are natural for them, their speaking feels smooth. You can train the same skill. You do not need to copy native speakers perfectly. You need to build speaking patterns that help your mind stay organized. The English speaking map gives you those patterns. It teaches you that speaking is not random. A clear answer has shape. A strong answer has movement. A confident answer has direction. When you understand this, speaking becomes less mysterious. You stop thinking, I do not know how to speak. You begin thinking, I need to follow the map. Now let us look at another example. Question, why do learners forget words when speaking? Without a map, a learner may say, because maybe nervous and vocabulary not remember, and when speaking mind blank and many problem. The listener can guess the meaning, but the answer is not clear. With the map, the answer becomes, learners forget words when speaking because their active vocabulary is not strong enough yet. The reason is that they may understand many words, but they have not practiced using them in real sentences. For example, a learner may know the word effective while reading, but during conversation they still say good because good is more active in the brain. That is why learners must practice vocabulary by speaking, not only memorizing. This answer is clearer because it has order. Notice that the stronger answer is not only about vocabulary, it is about structure. The speaker gives the main point, explains the reason, gives an example, and finishes with a result. This makes the answer easy to follow. That is the power of a speaking map. If you want to stop getting lost in English, you must stop treating every question like a new mountain. Many questions can be answered with the same mental path. Why is English important? Main point, reason, example, finish. How can learners speak better? Main point, reason, example, finish. Why is confidence important? Main point, reason, example, finish. What is your biggest challenge? Main point, reason, example, finish. The topic changes, but the map stays the same. This gives your brain stability. This is how you build automatic speaking. At first, you will think about the map consciously. You may say inside your mind, main point, reason, example, finish. But after practice, the map becomes natural. You will begin speaking with structure without thinking too much. Your answers will sound clearer. Your confidence will grow because you will know how to handle questions. You will not feel like English is a dark room. You will feel like English is a road. Another important truth is that getting lost in English does not mean you are failing. It means your brain is asking for a system. When a learner gets lost, the solution is not shame. The solution is structure. Do not say, my English is bad. Say, my speaking needs direction. Do not say, I cannot speak. Say, I need a clear map to organize my answers. This change in language is powerful because it turns the problem into a skill you can train. A learner who says, I am bad at English feels stuck. A learner who says, I need a speaking map has a solution. The first sentence creates shame. The second sentence creates direction. This book is here to give you that direction. So from today, when your mind gets lost, do not panic. Return to the map. Ask yourself, What is my main point? Say it simply. Then ask, why is this true? Give the reason. Then ask, can I give an example? Add one example. Then ask, how can I finish? End with a clear final sentence. This is not complicated. This is speaking with direction. The more you practice this, the more your mind will trust the map. Your fear will reduce because you will no longer feel completely unprepared. Your answers will become smoother because every sentence will have a job. Your listener will understand you better because your ideas will move in order. And most importantly, you will begin to feel that English speaking is not only about having more words, it is about knowing how to guide the words you already have. This is the foundation of the English speaking map. Before you learn how to speak longer, before you learn how to sound more fluent, before you learn how to answer difficult questions, you must understand why the mind gets lost. It gets lost because speaking has too much pressure without direction. It gets lost because the learner tries to translate, perfect, remember, and impress all at the same time. It gets lost because there is no road. Now you have the beginning of the road. Your English does not need to remain broken. Your mind does not need to become blank every time someone asks a question. Your sentences do not need to run in circles. You can learn to speak with order. You can learn to guide your thoughts. You can learn to start clearly, explain calmly, give examples naturally, and finish with confidence. Remember this golden truth. A clear map can turn confused English into confident English. When your mind has a map, your words find direction. When your words find direction, your sentences become clearer. When your sentences become clearer, your confidence becomes stronger. And when your confidence becomes stronger, speaking English no longer feels like getting lost. It begins to feel like moving forward. Chapter 2. Start with one clear main point. The first step of the English-speaking map is learning how to begin with one clear main point, because a clear beginning gives your whole answer direction. Many English learners do not get lost in the middle of speaking because they have no ideas. They get lost because they begin without choosing the main idea first. They open their mouth before their mind knows where the answer is going. Then one sentence comes, another thought interrupts it. A new idea appears, grammar pressure begins, translation starts, and suddenly the answer becomes messy. This is why the main point is so powerful. It gives your mind a starting place, and when your mind has a starting place, your speaking becomes calmer. A main point is the heart of your answer. It is the first clear message you want the listener to understand. It does not need to be long. It does not need to be advanced. It does not need to include every detail. It only needs to tell the listener what your answer is about. Think of it like the title of your speaking. If your answer has no title in your mind, your words will move without direction. But if your mind knows the title, your words begin to follow it. The main point tells your brain, this is the road, stay on this road. Many learners make the mistake of trying to say everything in the first sentence. They think their first sentence must include the answer, the reason, the example, the grammar, the perfect vocabulary, and the full explanation. This creates pressure. The first sentence becomes too heavy, and because it is too heavy, the learner freezes. A strong speaker does not make the first sentence carry the whole answer. A strong speaker uses the first sentence to open the answer clearly. After that, the reason, example, and details can come step by step. For example, if someone asks, why is English speaking difficult? You do not need to begin with a long and perfect explanation. You can start with one clear main point. English speaking is difficult because learners must think quickly. This sentence is simple, but it gives direction. Now your brain knows what to explain next. You can continue. The main reason is that speaking happens in real time, so learners do not have enough time to translate every word. Now you can give an example. For example, a learner may know the answer, but when someone asks a question suddenly, the words disappear because the brain is under pressure. Now you can finish. That is why daily speaking practice is important. This whole answer becomes clear because the first sentence gave the map. Without a clear main point, the same answer may become broken. A learner may say, speaking difficult because English grammar and vocabulary, and when people ask question, I forget, and maybe translation also, and I feel nervous. The meaning is there, but the direction is weak. The listener must work hard to understand the point. The speaker also feels weak because the answer is not controlled. This is what happens when you begin speaking from confusion instead of direction. This is why you must train yourself to pause for a tiny moment before speaking and ask, what is my main point? This pause does not need to be long. It can be 1 second. but that 1 second can save your whole answer. Instead of rushing into random words, your mind chooses the road. If the question is about English fluency, your main point may be fluency grows through daily practice. If the question is about vocabulary, your main point may be vocabulary becomes useful when it becomes active. If the question is about confidence, your main point may be confidence grows when you speak even with mistakes. These main points are not complicated, but they are strong because they are clear. A clear main point also protects you from translating too much. When learners translate, they often try to carry a full idea from their first language into English. This makes speaking slow and difficult. But when you use a main point, you begin directly in English with a simple idea. You do not need to translate a whole paragraph. You only need to choose the English direction. For example, instead of translating a long thought about why you want to learn English, you can start with, "I want to learn English because it helps me communicate with more people." This sentence gives your brain a clear English road. Then you can continue from there. The main point is also powerful because it stops your answer from becoming too wide. Many learners answer one question with too many topics. If someone asks, "How can I improve speaking?" they begin talking about grammar, vocabulary, listening, pronunciation, confidence, teachers, apps, subtitles, and motivation all at once. These topics may be useful, but too many ideas at the same time make the answer unclear. A main point forces you to choose one direction. You can say the best way to improve speaking is daily practice with simple sentence patterns. Now your answer has focus. You can talk about practice, patterns, examples, and results without getting lost. This is a golden skill in English speaking. Choose one main road, not 10 small roads. When you choose one road, your answer becomes stronger. If you try to walk on 10 roads at the same time, you go nowhere. Strong speaking is not about saying everything you know. Strong speaking is about choosing the most useful idea and explaining it clearly. This is why people who speak clearly often sound more intelligent than people who speak too much without direction. A main point can be built with simple phrases that help your mind start quickly. You can say, "My main point is, I believe, in my opinion, the answer is, the most important thing is, the key idea is, the first thing to understand is." These phrases are like doors. They open your answer. They tell your brain that the sentence has begun. They also tell the listener that you are about to give a clear idea. For example, you can say, "My main point is that English speaking becomes easier when learners stop chasing perfection." You can say, "I believe daily practice is more powerful than random study." You can say, "In my opinion, learners struggle because they translate too much before speaking." You can say, "The most important thing is to speak clearly, not perfectly." You can say, "The key idea is that fluency grows through repetition." These phrases make your English sound organized from the beginning. Many learners fear that simple main points sound too basic, but this is not true. A simple main point can be powerful if it is clear. Practice builds confidence is simple but strong. Translation slows speaking is simple but clear. Mistakes help learners grow is simple but meaningful. A speaking map gives your mind direction is simple but powerful. The strength is not in making the sentence difficult. The strength is in making the sentence exact. Remember this truth: your first sentence does not need to impress the listener, it needs to guide the listener. If your first sentence is clear, the listener feels comfortable. If your first sentence is confusing, the listener becomes unsure and you feel more pressure. A clear main point creates trust. It tells the listener, "I know what I am trying to say." That feeling alone makes your English sound more confident. Now let us take a common question. Why do you want to speak English better? A weak answer may begin like this: because English is very important, and in world many people and I want speak and maybe job and study also. This answer has ideas but no clear main point. A stronger beginning is, I want to speak English better because it will help me express my ideas clearly. This main point is focused. Now you can explain the reason. The main reason is that I understand many things in English, but I cannot always say my thoughts confidently. Now you can give an example. For example, when someone asks me a question, I know the answer in my mind, but I struggle to build the sentence quickly. Now you can finish. That is why improving speaking is important for me. The answer becomes complete because the main point created direction. Now take another question. What is the biggest problem for English learners? A weak answer may jump everywhere: vocabulary, grammar, speaking, confidence, many problems, and people afraid. A strong main point is, the biggest problem for many learners is that they understand English but they cannot use it quickly while speaking. This sentence gives a clear direction. Now the answer can continue. The reason is that their vocabulary and grammar are passive, not active. For example, they may know a word while reading, but during conversation they cannot remember it fast enough. That is why learners need daily speaking practice to activate English. This answer is stronger because it stays on one road. Now take another question. Is grammar important for speaking? A learner without a map may become nervous because the topic feels big, but with a main point, it becomes easier. You can say grammar is important, but it should not stop you from speaking. This sentence gives balance. Now you can explain. The reason is that learners need structure, but they also need real practice. If they wait for perfect grammar before speaking, they may stay silent for years. For example, a learner can make small grammar mistakes and still communicate clearly if the main idea is understandable. That is why grammar should support speaking, not block it. This is clear, mature, and powerful. Notice how each answer begins with one sentence that controls the rest. This is what you must practice. Your main point is the leader of your answer. If the leader is clear, the other sentences follow. If the leader is missing, the answer becomes a crowd. Another reason the main point is important is that it helps you speak longer without repeating yourself. Many learners repeat because they do not know what their answer is really about. They say the same idea again and again with small changes. But if you begin with a main point, you can build around it. Main point, reason, example, result. This prevents repetition because each sentence has a new job. You are not repeating, you are developing. For example, main point. Confidence grows through small daily speaking practice. Reason. The reason is that repeated action teaches the brain that speaking is not dangerous. Example. For example, if you answer one simple question every day, your fear slowly becomes weaker. Result. That is why small practice can create big confidence over time. This answer is not repetitive because every sentence adds something. Now compare it with a weak answer. Confidence is important. I need confidence. Confidence helps speaking. If confidence, English good. This answer repeats the topic but does not develop it. The difference is not only vocabulary, the difference is structure. A main point begins the development. A reason deepens it. An example makes it real. A result finishes it. This is why the English speaking map begins with main point training. If you cannot find the main point, the rest of the map becomes difficult. But once you can find the main point quickly, your answers become much easier. You will no longer feel that speaking is a dark room. You will feel that every question has a door, and the main point is the key. Now let us talk about how to create a strong main point. A strong main point usually answers the question directly. If the question begins with why, your main point should give the main reason. If the question begins with how, your main point should give the main method. If the question asks for your opinion, your main point should state your opinion. If the question asks about a problem, your main point should name the problem clearly. For example, question, why is listening important? Main point, listening is important because it trains your brain to understand natural English. Question, how can I improve vocabulary? Main point, you can improve vocabulary by using new words in real sentences. Question, do you think mistakes are bad? Main point, mistakes are not bad if you learn from them. Question, what is your biggest speaking problem? Main point, my biggest speaking problem is building sentences quickly without translating. These main points answer directly so the listener understands immediately. A weak main point is usually too general. English is good. Speaking is hard. Vocabulary is important. Practice is nice. These sentences are not wrong, but they do not give enough direction. A stronger main point adds a clear meaning. English is useful because it connects people. Speaking is challenging because it requires quick thinking. Active vocabulary is essential for fluent speaking. Daily practice builds confidence. These sentences are still simple, but they are more exact. To strengthen a main point, ask yourself, can I make this sentence more specific? Instead of saying, English is important, say, English is important because it helps me communicate with more people. Instead of saying, practice is good, say, daily practice is effective because it builds automatic speaking. Instead of saying, I have a problem, say, my main problem is speaking without translating. Specific main points create stronger answers. Another method is to use the pattern X helps Y because Z. For example, daily practice helps fluency because the brain learns through repetition. Power words help speaking because they make meaning clearer. A speaking map helps learners because it gives their thoughts direction. This pattern is very useful because it automatically gives your sentence structure. It includes the topic, the benefit, and the reason. Another strong pattern is the problem is not X, the problem is Y. For example, the problem is not that learners know nothing. The problem is that they cannot organize their thoughts quickly. This type of main point is powerful because it creates contrast. It catches attention and gives a clear direction. You can use it often in English speaking. The problem is not grammar alone. The problem is lack of speaking practice. The problem is not simple vocabulary. The problem is unclear expression. The problem is not mistakes. The problem is fear of mistakes. Another useful pattern is, if you want X, you need Y. For example, if you want clear speaking, you need a clear mental map. If you want fluency, you need daily speaking practice. If you want confidence, you need repeated action. This pattern sounds direct and motivational. It helps you speak with confidence because it gives a clear relationship between goal and action. Now, let us practice turning weak beginnings into strong main points. Weak beginning, English speaking is hard, strong main point. English speaking is challenging because learners must build sentences in real time. Weak beginning, vocabulary is good, strong main point. Active vocabulary is essential because it helps learners speak without going blank. Weak beginning, grammar is important, strong main point. Grammar is important, but learners should use it to support speaking, not to create fear. Weak beginning, I want English, strong main point. I want to improve my English because I want to express my ideas clearly. Weak beginning, practice helps, strong main point. Daily practice helps because it turns English knowledge into speaking ability. This is how your English becomes clearer before it becomes advanced. You do not need to start with difficult words. Start with a strong main idea. The words can stay simple, but the direction must be clear. Now, some learners say, but when someone asks me a question, I cannot think of a main point quickly. This is normal in the beginning. The solution is not to give up. The solution is to train common question types. Most daily English questions are not completely new. People ask about your opinion, your reason, your experience, your problem, your goal, your method, your preference, and your plan. If you practice main points for these categories, your brain becomes faster. For opinion questions, use I believe. For reason questions, use the main reason is. For experience questions, use from my experience. For problem questions, use the biggest challenge is. For goal questions, use my goal is. For method questions, use the best way is. For preference questions, use I prefer. For plan questions, use I plan to. These openings help your brain begin. For example, question, do you like learning English? Main point, I like learning English because it helps me grow. Question, why do learners stop practicing? Main point, many learners stop because they feel discouraged when progress is slow. Question, what helped you improve? Main point, from my experience, daily speaking practice helped me the most. Question, what is your biggest problem? Main point, my biggest challenge is speaking quickly without translating. Question, what is your goal? Main point, my goal is to speak English clearly and confidently. These main points are easy to train and useful in real conversation. The more main points you practice, the faster your mind becomes. At first, you may need to write them, then you can speak them aloud, then you can answer without writing. Finally, your mind will create them naturally. This is how the speaking map becomes automatic. Now, let us talk about the emotional power of a clear main point. When you begin clearly, you feel less nervous. Your voice becomes steadier because your mind knows what it is doing. But when you begin with confusion, your fear grows. You can feel yourself getting lost, and that feeling creates more pressure. A clear main point is like placing your foot firmly on the ground before walking. It gives you balance. This is why you must never underestimate the first sentence. The first sentence controls your confidence. If the first sentence is weak and confused, the rest of the answer becomes harder. If the first sentence is clear and direct, the rest becomes easier. A good beginning does not guarantee a perfect answer, but it gives you a strong chance. For example, if someone asks, "How can learners stop translating?" and you begin with, "Maybe translation is a problem because English and language and brain," you may feel nervous immediately. But if you begin with, "Learners can stop translating by practicing direct English sentence patterns," your confidence rises because the answer has direction. Now you can explain why. Now you can give an example. Now you can finish. The main point protects the answer. Another important lesson is that your main point should match the question. Sometimes learners give an answer that is clear, but it does not answer the question directly. This makes the listener confused. If someone asks, "Why do you want to improve your pronunciation?" do not start by talking about grammar. Start with pronunciation. Say, "I want to improve my pronunciation because clear pronunciation helps people understand me." Now you can explain more. If someone asks about vocabulary, start with vocabulary. If someone asks about confidence, start with confidence. This sounds simple, but many learners lose marks in exams and lose clarity in conversation because they do not answer directly. A direct main point is powerful because it respects the listener's question. It shows that you understood. It also helps you stay focused. If the question is, "What is your favorite way to practice English?" your main point can be, "My favorite way to practice English is speaking aloud every day." Do not begin with a long history of English. Answer first, then explain. This is another golden rule. Answer first, explain second. Many learners explain before answering. They give background, details, problems, and examples before the listener even knows the answer. This creates confusion. A strong speaker gives the answer first, then explains. This is the cleanest way to speak English clearly. For example, question, "Is reading useful for speaking?" Answer first, "Yes, reading is useful for speaking if you use the words actively." Then explain. The reason is that reading gives you vocabulary and sentence patterns, but you must speak them aloud to make them active. Then example. For example, if you read the phrase "build confidence," you should use it in your own sentence. Then finish. That is why reading and speaking should work together. This answer is strong because the main point came first. Now let us train some main points for your English learning topic. Fluency grows through repetition. Confidence grows through action. Vocabulary becomes powerful when it becomes active. Grammar is useful when it helps communication. Mistakes are part of real learning. Translation slows speaking when learners depend on it too much. Listening builds natural rhythm. Speaking practice turns knowledge into skill. A clear map helps learners organize their thoughts. Simple English can be powerful when it is clear. These sentences can become the beginning of many strong answers. You should create your own list of personal main points. Write main points about your goals, struggles, habits, and opinions. For example, my biggest goal is to speak English without fear. My biggest challenge is remembering words while speaking. My best habit is listening to English daily. My biggest weakness is translating before I answer. My strongest motivation is improving my future. When these main points are ready in your mind, speaking becomes easier because you have prepared roads. But do not memorize them like a robot. Use them as patterns. Change them. Make them natural. If the question changes, adjust the main point. The goal is not to repeat the same sentence forever. The goal is to train your brain to create clear first sentences. Now let us discuss how to make the main point sound more confident. Avoid starting with too much weakness. Do not always say, "I don't know," "maybe," "I am not sure," or "sorry, my English is bad." These phrases may feel safe, but they weaken your answer. If you are truly unsure, you can say, "I am not completely sure, but I think." That is honest and clear. But if you know your point, say it directly. "I believe," "in my opinion," "the main reason is," "the best way is." These phrases sound more confident. For example, weak start. "Maybe I think practice is good." Strong start. "I believe daily practice is essential." Weak start. "I don't know, maybe vocabulary helps." Strong start. Vocabulary helps when learners use words in real sentences. Weak start. "Sorry, I cannot explain well." Strong start. "Let me explain my main point clearly." These small changes make a big difference. A confident main point does not mean you are proud or rude. It means you are clear. You can be humble and confident at the same time. You can say, "I am still learning, but my main point is." This sentence is honest, but not weak. It admits learning without attacking your ability. This is the kind of language that protects your confidence. Now, another problem is that learners sometimes begin with a main point that is too broad. For example, English is important for life. This is true, but broad. A stronger main point is, English is important for me because it helps me communicate with more people. This is more personal and clear. Another broad point, practice is good. Stronger, daily speaking practice is effective because it builds confidence. Another broad point, confidence is important. Stronger, confidence is important because it helps learners continue speaking even after mistakes. When your main point becomes specific, your answer becomes easier to explain. Specific main points also help you speak longer. If your main point is too broad, you do not know what details to add. But if your main point is specific, the next sentences are obvious. For example, English is important is wide. But English is important because it helps me explain my ideas at work, gives you a clear path. You can talk about work, ideas, communication, and confidence. Specificity gives direction. Now let us practice main point building with one topic, speaking confidence. Weak main point, confidence is good. Stronger main point, confidence helps learners speak even when their English is not perfect. Even stronger main point, speaking confidence grows when learners practice small conversations every day instead of waiting for perfect grammar. This final sentence is powerful because it includes the topic, the method, and the contrast. It gives your whole answer a clear road. Now topic, vocabulary. Weak main point, vocabulary is important. Stronger, active vocabulary is important for speaking. Even stronger, active vocabulary is essential because learners need words they can use quickly in real conversations. This is strong because it explains why vocabulary matters. Now topic, mistakes. Weak main point, mistakes are bad. Stronger, mistakes are not always bad. Even stronger, mistakes are useful when learners correct them and keep speaking. This main point changes the feeling from fear to growth. Now topic, translation. Weak main point, translation is problem. Stronger, translation can slow English speaking. Even stronger, translation can slow English speaking when learners depend on their first language before every sentence. This main point is clear and exact. This is how you upgrade your speaking from weak beginnings to powerful beginnings. You do not need to make everything advanced. You need to make it clear, specific, and direct. Now, let us create a practical routine for Chapter 2. Every day, choose 5 common questions and answer only with the main point first. Do not explain yet, just train the beginning. Question: why do you learn English? Main point: I learn English because I want to communicate clearly. Question: what is your biggest problem? Main point: my biggest problem is speaking without translating. Question: how can learners improve? Main point: learners can improve by practicing English every day. Question: why is confidence important? Main point: confidence is important because it helps learners continue after mistakes. Question: what makes English difficult? Main point: English becomes difficult when learners try to be perfect before speaking. This exercise trains fast, clear starts. After you can say main points easily, add reasons and examples. But first, master the beginning. A strong beginning is the foundation. If the foundation is weak, the answer shakes. If the foundation is strong, the answer can grow. Another exercise is the one-sentence answer drill. Ask yourself a question and answer in one strong sentence. Do not speak too long. Force your mind to find the main point. Question: why is daily practice important? One sentence: daily practice is important because it turns English knowledge into speaking habit. Question: why do learners freeze? One sentence: learners freeze because their mind becomes crowded with grammar, translation, and fear. Question: how can I speak clearly? One sentence: you can speak clearly by following a simple structure: main point, reason, example, and finish. This drill makes your thinking sharp. Once your one-sentence answers become strong, longer speaking becomes easier because the main idea is already clear. The reason and example can come later, but if you cannot make one clear sentence, your long answer will become messy. This is why short main point training is not small. It is powerful. Now let us talk about the main point in storytelling. Even when you tell a story, you need a main point. If someone asks, "Tell me about your English journey," you should not begin randomly with every detail. Start with a clear main idea. My English journey has been challenging, but it has taught me the value of daily practice. Now the listener knows the story's direction. Then you can explain, "At first I understood English but could not speak confidently. The main reason was that I translated too much and feared mistakes. For example, when someone asked me a simple question, my mind became blank, but slowly daily speaking practice helped me build confidence." This story sounds organized because the main point controls it. Without a main point, stories become confusing. Learners say, "I started English, school, teacher, grammar, then YouTube, then speaking problem, then vocabulary, then I try." The listener may understand pieces, but the story does not flow. A main point gives the story meaning. It tells the listener why the story matters. The same is true in opinions, explanations, interviews, and conversations. A main point makes your answer sound intentional. It shows that you are not speaking randomly. It shows that your thoughts have shape. Now remember that your main point can be simple in daily conversation. If someone asks, "How was your day?" you do not need a deep speech. You can say, "It was productive because I finished important work." That is a clear main point. If someone asks, "Did you like the lesson?" you can say, "Yes, it was practical because I learned phrases I can use immediately." That is clear. If someone asks, "Are you improving?" you can say, "Yes, I am improving slowly because I practice every day." That is clear and natural. The map does not mean every answer must be long. The map means every answer has direction. Sometimes the main point is enough. Sometimes you add a reason. Sometimes you add an example. Sometimes you give a full answer. The more you practice, the more you will know how much to say. This is important because some learners think speaking clearly means speaking a lot. No, speaking clearly means saying enough. If the question is small, give a small, clear answer. If the question is big, give a bigger, structured answer. Do not force long answers everywhere. A strong speaker adjusts. Now, at the end of this chapter, you must understand the golden truth. The main point is the compass of your English speaking. Without it, your answer can walk in circles. With it, your answer moves forward. When you start with one clear idea, your mind becomes calmer, your listener understands faster, and your confidence becomes stronger. Do not wait for perfect words before you begin. Begin with direction. Do not try to explain everything at once. Start with one clear main point. Do not let fear push you into random sentences. Ask yourself, "What is my main answer?" Then say it simply. After that, the map will guide you. From today, train your first sentence. Make it clear, make it direct, make it specific. Use phrases like, "My main point is," "I believe," "The key idea is," "The answer is," and "The most important thing is." Answer first, explain second. Choose one road, not 10. Speak with direction, not confusion. Because when your first sentence is clear, your whole answer becomes easier. When your main point is strong, your reason becomes easier. When your reason is easier, your example becomes clearer. When your example is clear, your ending becomes stronger. This is how one clear main point can change your entire speaking. The English speaking map begins here. One clear main point, one clear direction, one clear road for your thoughts to follow. And when your thoughts have a road, your English stops wandering and starts moving with confidence. Chapter 3. Add the reason so your answer has strength. After you start with one clear main point, the next step of the English speaking map is giving the reason, because a main point without a reason can feel too short, too empty, and too weak. Many English learners can begin an answer, but they do not know how to continue after the first sentence. They say one sentence, then silence comes. They know the idea, but they cannot expand it. They feel pressure because the listener is waiting, and the learner starts thinking, "What should I say next?" This happens because the answer has a beginning, but it does not have support. The reason is the support. A reason gives your answer strength. It tells the listener why your main point makes sense. It also gives your brain a second step so you do not stop after one sentence. When you learn to add reasons naturally, your English becomes clearer and longer without becoming messy. You no longer speak random sentences, you speak with structure. First, you say what you think. Then you explain why you think it. This is the beginning of powerful speaking. For example, if someone asks, "Why is English speaking difficult?" and you only say, "English speaking is difficult," the answer is true, but it is incomplete. The listener may ask, "Why?" Your answer needs a reason. A stronger answer is, English speaking is difficult because learners must build sentences quickly in real time. Now the sentence has strength. It does not only say the problem, it explains the problem. It gives the listener something clear to understand. This is the golden truth of this chapter. Your answer becomes stronger when your main point has a reason behind it. Many learners speak weakly because they give statements without support. They say, practice is important, vocabulary is useful, confidence is necessary, grammar is difficult, speaking is scary. These sentences are correct, but they are not strong enough alone. A strong speaker adds the reason. Practice is important because repetition trains the brain to use English automatically. Vocabulary is useful because it helps learners express exact meaning. Confidence is necessary because fear can block even the words you already know. Grammar is difficult because learners often study rules without using them in real speaking. Now every sentence has more power. A reason is like the root of a tree. The main point is what people see above the ground, but the reason is what holds it. If your answer has no reason, it can feel light. If your answer has a strong reason, it feels grounded. The listener understands not only your opinion, but also the thinking behind your opinion. This makes your English sound more mature, more organized, and more confident. Use simple reason phrases to help your mind continue. Say, the reason is, this is because, the main reason is, one reason is, this matters because, I say this because. These phrases are powerful because they give your brain a road. After your main point, you do not need to panic. Just use a reason phrase and continue. For example, main point, I want to improve my English. Reason, the reason is that I want to express my ideas more clearly. Now your answer has direction. Main point, daily practice is essential. Reason, this is because fluency grows through repetition. Now your answer sounds stronger. Main point, many learners freeze when speaking. Reason, the main reason is that their mind becomes crowded with grammar, translation, and fear. Now the listener understands the problem deeply. The reason also helps you avoid repeating the same sentence. Many learners repeat because they do not know how to develop an answer. They say, English is important because English is useful and English is important for people and English is good. This is repetition, not explanation. A real reason gives new meaning. Instead of repeating, say, English is important because it helps people communicate across countries, learn from global content, and express ideas to a wider audience. This answer develops the point instead of circling around it. When you give a reason, do not throw 10 reasons together. This is another mistake. Learners think a long answer is better, so they collect many reasons quickly. English is important because job, study, travel, internet, people, future, confidence, and many things. This answer has many ideas, but it is not clear. One clear reason explained properly is stronger than 10 weak reasons listed without structure. Choose one main reason and explain it. For example, instead of saying everything, say, English is important because it helps me communicate with more people. Then explain that reason. When I can communicate with more people, I can learn from them, share my ideas, and feel more confident in real situations. This answer is stronger because it stays focused. It does not run everywhere. It develops one clear point. This is how the English-speaking map protects your speaking from confusion. The map does not ask you to say everything. It asks you to say one thing clearly. First main point, then one reason, later one example, then finish. This structure makes your English sound clean. Now let us take a common question. Why do you want to learn English? A weak answer may be because English is important and good for future. This is understandable but weak. A stronger answer is, I want to learn English because it helps me communicate with more people. This gives the main point and reason. Now make it more powerful. I want to learn English because it helps me communicate with more people, and communication gives me confidence in study, work, and daily life. This answer has strength because the reason explains the value. Now take another question. Why do learners feel nervous when speaking English? A weak answer may be because they afraid and English difficult. A stronger answer is, learners feel nervous when speaking English because they are afraid of making mistakes in front of others. Now the listener understands the emotional reason. Make it more powerful. Learners feel nervous when speaking English because they are afraid that one mistake will make them look weak, so they focus more on avoiding mistakes than expressing their message. This answer is deeper because it explains the hidden pressure. Now take another question. Why is daily speaking practice important? A weak answer may be because practice is good. A stronger answer is daily speaking practice is important because it turns English knowledge into active skill. Now the reason is clear. Make it more powerful. Daily speaking practice is important because the brain does not become fluent only by understanding English. It becomes fluent by using English again and again until speaking feels more natural. This answer has power because it explains the difference between knowing and using. This is the kind of English you must train. Do not stop at the main point. Add the reason. The reason gives your answer life. A strong reason can also help you sound more confident even with simple words. You do not need advanced vocabulary to explain why. You can use clear English. For example, I like learning English because it helps me understand more videos, books, and conversations. This is simple but strong. I practice speaking because I want my mouth to become comfortable with English. This is simple but meaningful. I use a speaking map because it helps me organize my thoughts. This is simple but clear. Simple English with a clear reason is much better than advanced English with confusion. Many learners think they must use big words to sound strong, but strong speaking often comes from strong explanation. If your reason is clear, your answer sounds intelligent. If your reason is weak or missing, even advanced vocabulary cannot save the answer. The listener does not only want words, the listener wants meaning. The reason gives meaning. Now let us learn how to build reasons properly. A good reason should answer the question why after your main point. If your main point is a speaking map is useful, ask why is it useful? Answer because it gives your mind direction. Now expand. When your mind has direction, you do not panic or jump between ideas. This becomes a strong reason. If your main point is vocabulary must become active, ask why. Answer because speaking requires words that can come quickly, not only words you recognize while reading. This reason is strong because it explains the real speaking problem. Always test your reason by asking, does this explain my point clearly? If the reason does not explain the point, change it. If the reason is too general, make it more specific. For example, main point, English is important. Weak reason, because English is good. Strong reason, because English helps people communicate with more people and access more knowledge. The strong reason explains better. Another way to build reasons is to use cause and effect. Say what causes the problem and what result it creates. For example, learners freeze because they try to translate every sentence and this makes their speaking slow. This sentence explains cause and effect. Cause, they translate. Effect, speaking becomes slow. Another example, daily practice builds confidence because repeated speaking teaches the brain that mistakes are normal. Cause, repeated speaking. Effect, confidence grows. Cause and effect makes your reason powerful. You can use this pattern often. This happens because the reason this happens is this creates, this leads to. For example, many learners forget words because their vocabulary is passive. This leads to hesitation during conversation. This is clear. Learners lose confidence because they focus only on mistakes. This creates fear before speaking. This is powerful. A speaking map helps because it gives structure. This leads to clearer answers. This is easy to understand. Reasons also become stronger when they are connected to real experience. If you say speaking is difficult because grammar is hard, that is okay, but general. If you say speaking is difficult because when someone asks me a question suddenly I do not have time to translate and check grammar, the reason becomes more real. It sounds like lived experience. People understand it because they can imagine the moment. This is why personal reasons are powerful. They make your English sound natural and honest. Say, I want to improve my English because I feel limited when I cannot express my ideas. Say, I practice every day because I do not want my mind to go blank during conversations. Say, I need a speaking map because I often know the answer, but I lose direction when I start speaking. These sentences are strong because they are connected to real learner pain. Now let us talk about the difference between a weak reason and a strong reason. A weak reason is too short, too general, or too unclear. Because it is good, because it is important, because many things, because English. These are weak because they do not explain enough. A strong reason gives clear meaning, because it helps learners express ideas clearly, because it turns passive knowledge into active speaking, because it reduces confusion and gives the mind a clear path. These are stronger because they tell the listener exactly why. When you answer, avoid ending the reason too quickly. If you say, English is important because it is useful, ask yourself, useful for what? Then continue. English is useful because it helps me understand global content and communicate with more people. Now it is better. If you say, practice is important because it helps, ask, helps how? Then continue. Practice helps because it trains the brain to build sentences faster. Now the reason is stronger. This is a powerful self-question. How? After giving a reason, ask how. It forces you to explain deeper. Main point. A speaking map helps learners. Reason, because it gives direction. How? It tells the learner what to say first, what to explain next, and how to finish clearly. Now the answer becomes stronger. Main point. Vocabulary improves speaking. Reason, because it gives more expression. How? It helps learners choose exact words instead of using the same weak words again and again. Now the meaning is clear. Another self-question is, why does this matter? Main point. Clear speaking is important. Reason, because people understand you faster. Why does this matter? When people understand you faster, you feel more confident and the conversation continues smoothly. This creates a deeper answer. These questions help you continue speaking. When you do not know what to say next, ask yourself quietly, why? How? Why does this matter? Your answer will grow naturally. Now, reasons are important in every kind of English speaking. In daily conversation, reasons make your answers more interesting. If someone asks, do you like this book? And you say yes, the conversation ends. If you say, yes, I like this book because it explains speaking in a simple way, the conversation becomes better. If someone asks, do you enjoy learning English? And you say, yes, because every new sentence makes me feel more confident, your answer sounds real. Reasons make conversations longer and more meaningful. In interviews, reasons make you sound thoughtful. If someone asks, why do you want this job? And you only say, because it is good, the answer is weak. If you say, I want this job because it matches my skills and gives me a chance to grow, the answer is stronger. If someone asks, why should we choose you? And you say, because I work hard, that is okay, but basic. Stronger. You should choose me because I am consistent, responsible, and willing to learn quickly. The reason gives your answer weight. In exams, reasons help you speak longer and score better. Many speaking tests ask why questions. If you answer with only one sentence, the answer feels incomplete. But if you give a main point and reason, you sound more fluent. For example, question, do you prefer studying alone or with others? Main point, I prefer studying alone. Reason, the reason is that I can focus better and study at my own speed. Now add an example later. This structure is clear. In YouTube, teaching, presentations, and storytelling, reasons are essential because they keep the listener engaged. People want to know why something matters. If you only say conclusions, your speech feels dry. If you explain the reason, your speech becomes convincing. This is why Chapter 3 is so important. Reasons do not only make your English longer, they make your English stronger. Now let us train some reason structures you can use again and again. Structure 1. I believe X because Y. Example, I believe daily practice is essential because fluency grows through repetition. Structure 2. X is important because Y. Example, clear speaking is important because it helps people understand your message quickly. Structure 3. The main reason is that. Example, the main reason learners freeze is that they try to translate before speaking. Structure 4. This matters because. Example, this matters because confidence grows when your answer has direction. Structure 5. The problem happens because. Example, the problem happens because learners study English passively but do not use it actively. These structures are simple, but they can create thousands of strong sentences. Now let us practice with English learning topics. Main point, speaking practice is essential. Reason, because it trains the brain to use English under pressure. Full sentence, speaking practice is essential because it trains the brain to use English under pressure. Stronger. Speaking practice is essential because real conversation does not give you unlimited time to translate and prepare. This reason is powerful because it connects practice to real speaking pressure. Main point. Listening helps speaking. Reason, because it teaches natural rhythm and sentence patterns. Full sentence. Listening helps speaking because it teaches natural rhythm and sentence patterns. Stronger. Listening helps speaking because your brain hears how English sounds in real situations, and this makes your own speaking more natural over time. Main point. Mistakes are useful. Reason. Because they show what you need to improve. Full sentence. Mistakes are useful because they show what you need to improve. Stronger. Mistakes are useful because they reveal the exact places where your English needs more practice. This is strong because it changes the meaning of mistakes from failure to feedback. Main point. Translation can slow speaking. Reason. Because it forces the brain to pass through another language before English comes out. Full sentence. Translation can slow speaking because it forces the brain to pass through another language before English comes out. Stronger. Translation can slow speaking because every extra mental step creates hesitation, and hesitation makes learners lose confidence. This reason is powerful because it explains the process. This is how you make your English deeper. You do not only answer, you explain. Now, some learners have the opposite problem. They give reasons, but the reasons are too long and messy. They begin with because and then continue for too many sentences without control. A strong reason should stay connected to the main point. If the reason becomes too long, break it into 2 sentences. For example, instead of saying, English speaking is difficult because when learners are speaking, they need grammar and vocabulary, and they also need pronunciation, and they need confidence, and they are thinking too much, and the brain does not work. Say, English speaking is difficult because learners must control many skills at the same time. They need vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and confidence, and this pressure can make the mind go blank. This is longer but controlled. Control is the secret. A reason should support the main point, not pull the answer into confusion. Use clean reason sentences. Say one reason clearly. Then, if needed, add one extra sentence to explain it. Do not pile everything into one breath. English becomes clearer when ideas are separated properly. A strong speaker can use long sentences, but they know how to control them. If you are still training, use clear medium-length sentences. This will make your speaking easier to follow. Another powerful technique is giving a reason with contrast. Contrast makes your reason more interesting because it shows what people think and what is actually true. For example, many learners think they need perfect grammar before speaking, but the real reason they struggle is lack of practice. This is strong because it corrects a common belief. Another example, people think vocabulary is only about memorizing words, but vocabulary becomes powerful because it helps you express meaning in real situations. This gives the listener a fresh understanding. Use contrast phrases like many learners think but, the problem is not but, it is not because, but because. For example, the problem is not that learners have no English, the problem is that they have no speaking direction. This line is powerful because it explains the reason clearly and emotionally. You can use this style often in your speaking. Now let us connect reasons to the full speaking map. The map is not just separate pieces. Each step supports the next. The main point opens the answer. The reason gives the answer strength. The example makes the answer clear. The ending gives the answer impact. If you skip the reason, the example may feel weak because the listener does not know why the example matters. If you give the reason, the example becomes easier to understand. For example, question, why do learners need a speaking map? Main point, learners need a speaking map because it gives their thoughts direction. Reason, the reason is that speaking pressure can make the mind jump between grammar, vocabulary, translation, and fear. Example, for example, when a learner answers a question without structure, they may start one idea, stop, repeat, and lose confidence. Finish. That is why a simple map can make English speaking clearer. This answer is complete because the reason connects the main point to the example. Now, if you remove the reason, the answer becomes weaker. Learners need a speaking map because it gives direction. For example, they stop and repeat. It is still understandable, but less powerful. The reason explains the pressure inside the mind. It gives depth. That is why reasons matter. Now let us create a daily practice for Chapter 3. Choose one main point and give 3 different reasons. Main point, daily practice is important. Reason 1, because repetition makes English more automatic. Reason 2, because small daily action builds confidence. Reason 3, because speaking skill grows through use, not only study. This exercise trains flexibility. You learn that one main point can have different reasons. Now choose another main point. A speaking map helps learners. Reason 1, because it gives the mind direction. Reason 2, because it reduces pressure during speaking. Reason 3, because it helps learners continue after the first sentence. This trains your mind to explain ideas from different angles. Now choose another main point. Vocabulary must become active. Reason 1, because speaking needs words that come quickly. Reason 2, because passive words do not appear easily in conversation. Reason 3, because learners need to use words in real sentences before they can speak them naturally. This exercise will make your explanations stronger. Another exercise is the because chain. Start with one sentence and keep asking why. I want to speak English clearly. Why? Because I want people to understand my ideas. Why does that matter? Because when people understand me, I feel more confident. Why does confidence matter? Because confidence helps me speak more often. Now you have a deeper answer. I want to speak English clearly because I want people to understand my ideas. When people understand me, I feel more confident, and confidence helps me speak more often. This is a strong answer built from reasons. The because chain is powerful because it trains depth. Many learners stop at the first reason. Strong speakers can go one level deeper. They do not over-explain, but they know how to add meaning. Now let us use reasons for personal English goals. Say, my goal is to speak English without fear because fear stops me from using the words I already know. This is strong because it connects goal and problem. Say, my goal is to build active vocabulary because I understand many words while reading, but I cannot use them quickly when speaking. This is real and clear. Say, my goal is to follow a speaking map because I often lose direction after the first sentence. This shows self-awareness. When you speak about yourself with clear reasons, your English becomes more powerful because it sounds honest. People do not only hear a learner, they hear a person who understands their own journey. Now, reasons also help you sound less memorized. If you only memorize answers, your English can sound robotic. But if you understand reasons, you can create answers in real time. You can adjust your answer because you understand the logic behind it. For example, if someone asks, why is confidence important? You do not need to memorize one answer. You can create, confidence is important because it helps learners continue speaking even when they make mistakes. If someone asks, why do mistakes help? You can create, mistakes help because they show learners what to practice next. Reasons make your speaking flexible. This is one of the biggest differences between memorized English and real English. Memorized English depends on exact sentences. Real English depends on clear thinking patterns. A speaking map gives you thinking patterns. The reason step teaches your mind to explain, not just repeat. Now let us talk about tone. When you give a reason, speak calmly and clearly. Do not rush. Many learners rush because they feel nervous, but when you rush, your reason becomes harder to understand. Use a steady voice. Give your main point, pause slightly, then say, the reason is. This small pause gives your speaking rhythm. It also gives your listener time to follow. For example, say daily practice is essential. The reason is that fluency grows through repetition. This sounds clear. Do not throw it all together too fast. Strong speaking needs rhythm. The reason should feel like support, not panic. Now let us discuss how reasons protect you when your answer is short. If you can only say 2 sentences, make them main point plus reason. That is already a good answer. For example, I want to improve my English because I want to communicate more clearly. This is short but complete. Speaking is difficult because I still translate before answering. This is short but meaningful. A speaking map helps because it gives my thoughts direction. This is short but strong. A short answer with a clear reason is better than a long answer with confusion. This is very important for beginners and intermediate learners. Do not force long answers until your structure is strong. First, master main point plus reason, then add examples, then add endings. This step-by-step method builds real speaking ability. Now, as you move forward in this book, remember that reasons are the bridge between your idea and your listener's understanding. You may know why you think something, but the listener does not know until you explain it. A reason opens your thinking to the listener. It shows the logic behind your words. it makes your English more convincing. If your main point is the door, the reason is the room behind the door. Without the room, the door opens to nothing. With the reason, your answer has space and meaning. At the end of this chapter, remember this golden truth. A clear reason turns a simple answer into a strong answer. Do not only say what you think, explain why you think it. Do not only say what you want, explain why it matters. Do not only say what the problem is, explain why it happens. Do not only say what helps, explain how it helps. From today, after every main point, train yourself to add one reason, use because, use the reason is, use this matters because, use the main reason is, keep the reason focused, keep it clear, keep it connected to your main point. If the reason is weak, ask why. If it is too general, ask how. If it is too short, ask why does this matter? This is how your English begins to grow. First you speak one clear main point, then you add one clear reason. Now your answer has a body. Now your thoughts have support. Now your listener understands you more deeply. Now your confidence rises because you are not stuck after the first sentence. The English speaking map is becoming stronger inside you. You are no longer speaking randomly. You are learning to build answers. Main point gives direction, reason gives strength. And in the next step, examples will make your English even clearer, more practical, and easier to understand. Chapter 4. Use examples to make your English easy to understand. After you give your main point and explain the reason, the next powerful step of the English speaking map is the example. This step is extremely important because examples make your English easy to understand. Many learners speak in general sentences, and general sentences are not always wrong, but they often feel weak because the listener cannot see the meaning clearly. When you add an example, your idea becomes real, your answer becomes practical, your speaking becomes easier to follow. This is why examples are one of the strongest tools for clear English speaking. A main point tells the listener what you think. A reason tells the listener why you think it, but an example shows the listener what you mean. This is the difference. Without an example, your idea may stay in the air. With an example, your idea lands on the ground. The listener can imagine it, understand it, and remember it. That is why strong speakers do not only explain ideas, they show ideas through examples. Many English learners say things like, practice is important, vocabulary is useful, confidence is necessary, speaking is difficult, or English needs routine. These sentences are correct, but they can feel too general. The listener understands the basic idea, but the answer does not feel complete. Now add an example and listen to the difference. Practice is important. For example, if you speak English for 10 minutes every day, your brain slowly becomes faster at building sentences. This answer is much stronger because the example shows how practice works. Another learner may say, vocabulary helps speaking. This is correct, but simple. Now add an example. Vocabulary helps speaking. For example, if you only know the word good, your English will sound basic, but if you know words like effective, practical, and valuable, you can explain your meaning more clearly. Now the listener understands the real value of vocabulary. The example turns the idea into something useful. This is the golden truth of this chapter. Examples make your English visible. When you speak without examples, your English can sound like a list of opinions. When you speak with examples, your English sounds like real communication. People do not only hear your idea, they can see it in action. This is why teachers use examples. This is why good speakers use examples. This is why clear communicators use examples. An example can explain in 5 seconds what a long explanation may fail to explain in 1 minute. For example, if you say a speaking map helps learners stay organized, the idea is clear but still general. Now add an example. For example, when someone asks, "Why do you learn English?" a learner can follow the map and say the main point first, then give a reason, then add an example, and finally finish clearly. Now the listener understands how the speaking map works. The example makes the method real. Many learners do not use examples because they think examples require advanced English. This is not true. Examples can be simple. In fact, simple examples are often the best examples because they make your meaning clear quickly. You do not need complicated stories. You only need one small, real situation that supports your point. If your point is, translation slows speaking, your example can be simple. For example, when someone asks you a question, you first think in your own language, then translate it into English, and by that time, you lose speed. This example is clear. If your point is, confidence grows through practice, your example can be, for example, if you answer one simple English question every morning, your fear slowly becomes weaker. This example is simple but powerful. The goal of an example is not to impress people. The goal is to make your meaning clear. Use example phrases to help your mind continue speaking. Say, for example. For instance, a simple example is, let me give you an example. This happens when. You can see this when. Imagine this. These phrases are powerful because they give your brain a next step. After the reason, if you feel stuck, simply say, for example, and your mind will start looking for a real situation. This is why examples help you speak longer without getting lost. Many learners stop after the reason because they do not know what comes next. The example gives them another step. Main point, reason, example. This path keeps your speaking alive. You do not need to force long answers. You only need to follow the map. For example, question: why is speaking English difficult? Main point: speaking English is difficult because learners must think quickly. Reason: the reason is that they often translate, check grammar, and search for words at the same time. Example: for example, when someone asks a simple question like, what did you do today? The learner may know the answer, but the mind becomes busy translating and checking the sentence, so the words come slowly. Finish. That is why speaking practice is necessary. This answer sounds complete because the example shows the problem clearly. Now compare it with an answer without an example. Speaking English is difficult because learners must think quickly and translate. This answer is okay but not as strong. The example adds life. It shows the real moment when the learner struggles. It helps the listener feel the problem. Examples also make your English more believable. If you say, daily practice helps, someone may agree, but the idea is still general. If you say, daily practice helps, for example, when you repeat 5 useful sentences every morning, your mouth becomes more comfortable with English. The listener believes the idea more because you showed how it works. An example is like proof. It proves that your point is not empty. This is very important in speaking because many learners give opinions but do not support them. They say this method is good, but they do not show why. A strong speaker says this method is effective because it gives learners a clear structure. For example, instead of thinking randomly, they can answer with main point, reason, example, and finish. Now the answer has support. It feels stronger. Examples also help you explain difficult ideas with simple English. Some ideas are abstract. Words like confidence, fluency, active vocabulary, clarity, structure, and mindset can feel general, but when you add examples, they become easier. If you say active vocabulary is important, the phrase may sound serious, but not every listener understands it deeply. Now add an example. For example, you may understand the word essential when you read it, but if you cannot use it while speaking, it is not active yet. Now the idea becomes clear. If you say clarity is more important than complexity, that sounds good, but the example makes it powerful. For example, saying daily practice builds confidence is clearer and stronger than using a long, complicated sentence that confuses the listener. Now the listener understands the meaning. Examples turn big ideas into simple pictures. A good example should connect directly to your main point. This is very important. Some learners give examples that are too far from the topic. If your main point is about English speaking, your example should also be about English speaking. If your point is about confidence, your example should show confidence. If your point is about vocabulary, your example should show vocabulary. Do not give an example that pulls your answer away from the topic. For example, if your main point is, a speaking map helps learners answer clearly, a good example is, if someone asks why you learn English, you can answer with one main point, one reason, and one example. A weak example would be something unrelated like, for example, people travel to many countries. That may be connected to English in a broad way, but it does not show how the speaking map works. A strong example must show the point clearly. The example should be specific enough to help. If you say, for example, many things, that is not useful. If you say, for example, when learners answer a question without structure, they often repeat themselves and lose direction, that is clearer. Specific examples make your English stronger. Now let us practice examples with common English learning ideas. Main point: daily speaking practice builds confidence. Reason: the reason is that repeated action reduces fear. Example: For example, if you answer one simple question every day, your brain slowly learns that speaking English is not dangerous. This example supports the reason. Main point: translation can slow speaking. Reason: the reason is that the brain takes extra time to move from one language to another. Example: for example, when someone asks, "What do you think?" you may know the answer in your own language, but while translating it into English, the conversation moves ahead and you lose confidence. This example shows the real problem. Main point: vocabulary must become active. Reason: the reason is that speaking needs words that come quickly. Example: for example, you may know the word effective while reading, but during conversation you still say good because good is more active in your mouth. This example makes active vocabulary clear. Main point: clear structure helps speaking. Reason: the reason is that structure gives the mind direction. Example: for example, if you use main point, reason, example, and finish, you do not need to worry about what to say next because every step guides you. This example explains the map itself. This is how examples make your speaking more powerful. They show the listener exactly what you mean. Another powerful type of example is a personal example. Personal examples make your English sound real because they come from your experience. Instead of speaking only generally, you can say, "For example, when I try to speak English suddenly, I sometimes know the idea, but I cannot find the sentence quickly." This is personal and clear. You can say, "For example, when I practice one short answer every day, I feel more confident the next time I speak." This shows your own journey. Personal examples are very useful because they help you speak naturally. You do not need to invent complicated situations. Use your own life. Use your own struggle. Use your own progress. If you are learning English, you already have many examples. You have moments when your mind goes blank. You have moments when you remember a word. You have moments when you speak better than before. You have moments when you feel nervous. These are perfect examples for English practice. For example, if your point is mistakes are part of learning, your personal example can be, "For example, yesterday I used the wrong tense in a sentence, but after correcting it, I remembered it better." This example is simple and powerful. If your point is speaking practice reduces fear, you can say, "For example, the first time I recorded my voice, I felt uncomfortable, but after a few days, I became more confident." This example feels real. Another type of example is a contrast example. This is very powerful because it shows the difference between weak speaking and strong speaking. For example, you can say weak speaking says, "English is good." Strong speaking says, "English is useful because it helps me communicate with more people." This example teaches clearly because it compares two versions. You can use contrast examples often. Without a map, a learner may say, "Practice good, English improve." With a map, the learner can say, "Daily practice improves English because it trains the brain to build sentences faster." This contrast shows the upgrade. It helps the listener understand the value of structure. Another contrast example: a weak answer gives only one sentence and stops. A strong answer gives the main point, explains the reason, adds an example, and finishes clearly. This example is simple, but it teaches the whole method. Examples can also help you fix your own speaking while you are talking. If you explain something and feel that your sentence is not clear, add an example immediately. Say, "Let me give you an example." This phrase can save your answer. It gives you time, it gives the listener clarity, and it helps you continue. For example, you may say, "English needs direction." If that feels too general, continue. "Let me give you an example." If someone asks you a question and you do not know how to organize your answer, you may stop after one sentence. But if you follow a map, you know the next step. Now your meaning becomes clear. This is why examples are not only for teaching, they are for survival in real speaking. When your idea is weak, add an example. When your listener looks confused, add an example. When your answer feels too short, add an example. When you do not know what to say next, add an example. Examples keep your English moving. Now, let us learn how to make examples clear. A good example usually has a situation and a result. Situation means what happens. Result means what it shows. For example, when someone asks you a question suddenly, your mind may become blank. That is the situation. This shows that your vocabulary is not active enough yet. That is the result. Together, they make a strong example. Another example, if you practice one answer every day, your brain becomes more comfortable with speaking. Situation, practice one answer every day. Result, brain becomes more comfortable. This example is clear because it shows action and outcome. Use patterns like when, if, and imagine. These are excellent for examples. When learners translate every sentence, their speaking becomes slow. If you speak for 10 minutes daily, your confidence slowly grows. Imagine someone asks you a question in English and you have no structure. Your mind may jump everywhere. These patterns help you create examples naturally. The when example is useful for real situations. When I speak with fluent people, I feel pressure. When learners forget words, they often lose confidence. When you use a speaking map, your answer becomes more organized. The if example is useful for cause and effect. If you practice daily, your fluency improves. If you only memorize words, they may stay passive. If you answer with structure, people understand you faster. The imagine example is useful when you want the listener to picture something. Imagine you are in a conversation and someone asks your opinion. If you have no map, you may freeze. But if you follow the map, you can start with one clear point. These example patterns can make your speaking much stronger. Now, one mistake learners make is giving examples that are too long. A long example can be useful, but if it becomes too long, the listener may forget the main point. Your example should support the idea, not replace the whole answer. Keep the example focused. If you are explaining speaking fear, give one situation about speaking fear. Do not tell a long story about your whole life, unless the topic needs it. For example, a focused example is, for example, when someone asks me a question suddenly, I feel pressure and forget simple words. This is clear. A messy example would include too many details. For example, yesterday I was outside and my friend came and then we were talking and then there was another person and then I remembered school and then English. This may become confusing. Keep the example connected to the point. A strong example should be short enough to follow and clear enough to prove the point. Another mistake is saying for example but then giving another general statement. For example, practice is important. For example, practice is very good for English. This is not a real example. It repeats the idea. A real example shows a situation. For example, if you repeat 5 useful sentences every morning, your mouth becomes more comfortable with English. This is much better. To check if your example is real, ask, can the listener picture it? If yes, it is probably a good example. If no, make it more specific. Now, let us build full answers using examples. Question: why do learners need a speaking map? Answer: learners need a speaking map because it gives their thoughts direction. The reason is that speaking pressure can make the mind crowded with grammar, vocabulary, translation, and fear. For example, if someone asks a simple question like, why do you learn English? A learner without a map may start speaking randomly and then stop. But with a map, the learner can give one main point, one reason, one example, and finish clearly. That is why a speaking map makes English easier. This answer is strong because the example shows the problem and the solution. Question: how can I speak English more clearly? Answer: you can speak English more clearly by organizing your answer before you speak. The reason is that clear structure helps the listener follow your idea. For example, instead of saying many random sentences, you can say your main point first, then explain why, then give a small example. This makes your answer sound calm and complete. This answer is clear because the example is practical. Question: why do I forget words while speaking? Answer: you forget words while speaking because many of your words are passive, not active. The reason is that you may understand them while reading, but you have not practiced using them in real sentences. For example, you may know the word essential when you see it, but during conversation you still say very important because that phrase is easier for your mouth. That is why you need to speak new words aloud until they become active. This answer is strong because the example explains passive vocabulary clearly. Question: why is confidence important? Answer: confidence is important because it helps you continue speaking even when your English is not perfect. The reason is that fear can stop you from using the English you already know. For example, a learner may know the answer, but if they are afraid of mistakes, they stay silent. When confidence grows, the learner speaks more, and every conversation becomes practice. This answer has emotional power because the example shows the real situation. This is the level you should practice. Do not only speak opinions, add examples that make your opinion real. Now, examples also help you speak with more personality. If you only give general information, your English may sound like a textbook. But when you give examples from life, your English becomes more human. People connect with examples because examples feel real. If you say speaking English is stressful, people understand. But if you say, for example, when someone asks me a question suddenly, I can feel my mind searching for words and my confidence dropping, people feel the experience. That is stronger. Personal examples show your real journey. They make your English warmer and more natural. You do not need to share private details, just share simple learning moments. For example, I used to understand English videos, but when I tried to speak, I could not build sentences quickly. For example, when I started recording my voice, I noticed I repeated the same words too much. For example, after practicing the same sentence pattern for 1 week, I could answer similar questions faster. These examples are useful, safe, and powerful. Examples also help you teach yourself. When you create an example, you understand the idea better. If you can give an example of a word, you know how to use the word. If you cannot give an example, maybe you only understand the word generally. For instance, if you learn the word effective, give an example. This method is effective because it helps learners speak every day. If you learn anxious, give an example. I feel anxious when I speak with fluent people. Examples prove that a word is active. This is why every new word should have an example sentence. Do not only memorize clarity. Say, clarity is important because people understand you faster. Do not only memorize structure. Say, structure helps me organize my answer. Do not only memorize hesitation. Say, hesitation happens when I translate before speaking. These examples make the words usable. Now let us connect examples with the speaking map in a deeper way. The map gives your answer a path, but examples give the path color. Main point is direction. Reason is strength. Example is clarity. If you remove examples, your answer may still work, but it may feel dry. If you add examples, the answer becomes easier, richer, and more memorable. For example, main point and reason. A speaking map is useful because it gives direction. This is clear but short. Add example. For example, if you answer a question with main point, reason, example, and finish, you do not feel lost after the first sentence. Now it becomes more practical. Add finish. That is why a speaking map helps learners speak with more confidence. Now the answer is complete. This is why examples are the middle strength of your speaking. They keep your answer from being too short and too abstract. Now practice examples with a daily routine. Choose one main point every day and create 3 examples for it. Main point. Daily practice builds confidence. Example 1. For example, answering one question every morning makes speaking feel more normal. Example 2. For example, recording your voice every day helps you notice progress. Example 3. For example, repeating useful phrases makes your mouth more comfortable with English. This trains your brain to support ideas. Main point. Translation slows speaking. Example 1. For example, when someone asks a question, translating every word can make your answer late. Example 2. For example, you may know the idea, but while changing it into English, your confidence drops. Example 3. For example, learners who translate often pause too much between words. This gives you many ways to explain the same idea. Main point. Examples make English clearer. Example 1. For example, a grammar rule becomes easier when you see it inside a real sentence. Example 2. For example, a new word becomes easier when you use it in a personal example. Example 3. For example, a speaking method becomes clearer when someone shows how to use it in a real question. This practice makes you a better speaker. Another exercise is the example expansion drill. Start with a short idea and expand it with an example. Short idea, speaking needs practice. Expanded, speaking needs practice. For example, you cannot learn to speak confidently only by reading grammar. You need to open your mouth and answer real questions, even if your sentences are simple. This is much stronger. Short idea: fear blocks English. Expanded: fear blocks English. For example, a learner may know the correct sentence, but if they are afraid of being judged, they may stay silent. This is clear and emotional. Short idea: structure helps fluency. Expanded: structure helps fluency. For example, when you know that your answer should have a main point, reason, example, and ending, you do not waste energy wondering what to say next. This is useful and practical. This drill will make your speaking more complete. Now, examples are also very helpful when you want to speak in videos or audiobooks. A script without examples can feel dry and boring. A script with examples keeps the audience engaged because they can see themselves in the lesson. When you say many learners get lost while speaking, the audience understands. But when you say, for example, someone asks you, "What do you think about this?" and suddenly your mind becomes blank, the audience feels, "Yes, this happens to me." That connection keeps them listening. This is why examples are powerful for retention. People stay longer when they recognize their own problem. Examples create recognition. Recognition creates attention. Attention creates learning. If you want your English speaking to be interesting, use examples that match real learner experiences. Now, as you practice examples, remember not to overuse the phrase "for example" in every sentence. It is useful, but you can vary it. Say, for example, for instance. A simple example is, "This happens when," you can see this when. Imagine this. Let me give you a real situation. These variations make your English sound smoother. For example, instead of repeating, "for example, for example, for example," you can say, "A simple example is speaking practice." When you answer one question daily, your brain learns to respond faster. You can see this when a learner repeats the same sentence pattern for 1 week and starts answering similar questions more easily. This sounds natural because the example is integrated into the explanation. A strong speaker uses examples naturally, not mechanically. Now, at the end of this chapter, remember the golden truth. Examples are the light of your English speaking. They make your meaning visible. They help the listener understand. They help your mind continue. They turn general ideas into practical communication. They make your answer stronger, longer, clearer, and more believable. Do not speak only in general sentences. Do not say practice is important and stop. Show how practice works. Do not say translation is harmful and stop. Show what happens when learners translate. Do not say a speaking map helps and stop. Show how the map works in a real answer. Every strong idea becomes stronger when you add a clear example. From today, after your main point and reason, train yourself to ask, "Can I give an example?" Most of the time the answer is yes. Use a small example, use a personal example, use a contrast example, use a real English learning situation. Keep it focused, keep it connected, keep it clear. This is how your speaking becomes easier to understand. Main point gives direction, reason gives strength, example gives clarity. Together they create English that does not feel lost, broken, or confusing. They create English that moves with purpose. And when your listener understands your example, your confidence grows because you can feel that your English is working. That confidence will make you speak more. Speaking more will make your examples better. Better examples will make your explanation stronger. The English speaking map is now becoming complete inside your mind. You have learned to begin with one clear point. You have learned to support it with a reason. Now you have learned to make it visible with examples. This is how confused speaking slowly becomes clear speaking, and this is how clear speaking slowly becomes confident English. Chapter 5. Connect your sentences so you do not sound broken. Many English learners know how to make one sentence, but they struggle to connect one sentence to the next sentence. This is why their English may sound broken even when every sentence is understandable. They say one idea, then stop, then they say another idea, then stop again. Then they search for the next word, repeat the same thought, or jump to a different topic. The listener can understand small pieces, but the whole answer does not feel smooth. The problem is not always grammar. The problem is connection. Connection is the bridge between your sentences. Without connection, your English sounds like separate stones on the ground. With connection, your English becomes a road. Each sentence leads to the next sentence. Each idea supports the next idea. The listener does not feel lost because your words are guiding them. This is why connected speaking sounds more fluent, more mature, and more confident. A learner without connection may say, "English is important. I practice every day. I want confidence. Speaking is difficult. I need vocabulary." These sentences are not completely wrong, but they do not flow. They feel like separate pieces. Now listen to the connected version. "English is important because it helps me communicate clearly. That is why I practice every day. At first, speaking feels difficult, but daily practice helps me build confidence. I also need stronger vocabulary because better words help me express my ideas more clearly." This answer sounds much better because the sentences are connected. This is the golden truth of this chapter. Fluent English is not only about speed, fluent English is about connection. Many learners think fluency means speaking very fast, but fast English without connection can still sound messy. If you speak fast but jump between ideas, the listener will struggle. If you speak slowly but connect your ideas clearly, your English will sound more confident. Connection gives your speaking rhythm. It makes your answer feel complete. It helps your listener follow your thoughts from beginning to end. The English speaking map already gives you direction, main point, reason, example, and finish. But connection is what makes these steps flow together naturally. You cannot just throw the main point, reason, and example separately. You must connect them. Main point connects to reason. Reason connects to example. Example connects to result. This is how an answer becomes smooth. For example, question, "Why is daily speaking practice important?" Main point, daily speaking practice is important because it builds confidence. Reason, the reason is that confidence grows through repeated action. Example, for example, if you answer one English question every day, speaking slowly becomes less scary. Finish, that is why small daily practice can create strong results over time. This answer is clear because each sentence connects naturally to the next one. Now listen to the same answer without connection. Daily speaking practice is important. Confidence grows. Answer one question every day. It helps. The meaning is similar, but the answer feels weak. Connection gives the answer strength. One of the most important connection phrases is because. This word connects an idea to a reason. If you only say, "I practice English every day," the listener understands the action. But if you say, "I practice English every day because I want to speak more confidently," the listener understands the purpose. The sentence becomes stronger because it answers why. Use because often when you want to make your speaking more complete. For example, "I listen to English because I want to understand natural pronunciation." "I repeat sentences because I want my mouth to become comfortable with English." "I use a speaking map because it gives my thoughts direction." These sentences are simple, but they are powerful because they connect action with reason. Another powerful connection phrase is "that is why." This phrase connects a reason or example to a result. It helps you finish ideas clearly. For example, many learners translate before speaking, and this makes their answers slow. That is why direct English practice is important. The phrase "that is why" tells the listener that your final point is coming. It gives your answer a strong ending. Use "that is why" when you want to show the result of what you explained. Speaking practice builds confidence. That is why learners should speak every day. Examples make ideas easier to understand. That is why strong speakers use examples often. A speaking map gives direction. That is why it helps learners avoid confusion. This phrase makes your English sound organized. Another useful connector is "for example." You already learned the power of examples in the previous chapter, but now you must understand that "for example" is also a connection phrase. It connects your idea to a real situation. It tells the listener, "Now I will show you what I mean." This makes your speaking easier to follow. For example, vocabulary becomes powerful when it becomes active. For example, you may understand the word essential when reading, but you need to use it in your own sentence before it becomes part of your speaking. The phrase "for example" smoothly connects the general idea to a real case. Another important connector is "but." This word shows contrast. It is powerful because many ideas in real life are not one-sided. Sometimes you need to show two sides. For example, grammar is important, but it should not stop you from speaking. This sentence is stronger than only saying grammar is important. The word "but" creates balance. It shows that you understand the topic more deeply. Use "but" carefully and clearly. English can feel difficult at first, but it becomes easier with daily practice. Mistakes can feel embarrassing, but they help learners improve. Simple English may look basic, but simple English with clear structure can be powerful. These sentences sound mature because they show contrast. Another useful connector is also. This word adds another idea. If you want to give one more point, use also. For example, speaking practice builds confidence. It also helps learners activate vocabulary. This sounds smoother than saying two disconnected sentences. You can also use another reason is when you want to add a second reason. For example, the first reason is that practice builds confidence. Another reason is that practice trains your brain to respond faster. Do not add too many ideas with also. If you add too many, your answer can become crowded. One extra idea is enough in most answers. Remember, clear speaking is not about saying everything. It is about guiding the listener. Another connector is in other words. This phrase is powerful when you want to explain the same idea in a simpler way. Sometimes your first sentence may be a little abstract. Use in other words to make it clearer. For example, active vocabulary is essential for speaking. In other words, you need words that can come out of your mouth quickly, not only words you can recognize in a book. This phrase helps the listener understand your meaning better. Use in other words when you feel your idea needs a simpler explanation. A speaking map reduces mental pressure. In other words, it tells your brain what to say next. Fluency grows through repetition. In other words, the more you speak, the easier speaking becomes. Clarity is more important than complexity. In other words, it is better to be understood than to sound complicated. These sentences are clear and strong. Another useful phrase is "this means." It helps you explain the meaning of your previous sentence. For example, many learners have passive vocabulary. This means they understand words when reading, but they cannot use them quickly while speaking. This phrase is excellent for teaching and explaining. It makes your English sound organized because you define the idea after saying it. You can also use "this helps," "this creates," "this leads to," and "as a result." These phrases connect an action to an outcome. For example, daily speaking practice trains your brain to use English faster. This helps you answer questions with less hesitation. Another example, a clear speaking map gives your answer direction. This creates confidence because you know what to say next. Another example, repeating strong sentence patterns makes them familiar. As a result, they come out more naturally in conversation. These connectors are very powerful because they explain results. Strong speakers often show cause and result. They do not only say what happens, they explain what it leads to. Now let us take a weak answer and connect it step by step. Weak answer. English speaking is difficult. I translate. I forget words. I need practice. This answer has useful ideas, but it sounds broken. Connected answer. English speaking is difficult because I often translate before I answer. When I translate, my speaking becomes slow, and sometimes I forget simple words. That is why I need daily practice to train my brain to respond directly in English. This version is stronger because the sentences are connected with because, when, and that is why. Another weak answer, vocabulary is important. I know many words I cannot use, speaking problem. Connected answer, vocabulary is important, but knowing words is not enough. Many learners understand words while reading, but they cannot use them quickly while speaking. This means their vocabulary is passive, not active. That is why learners need to use new words in real sentences. This answer sounds clear, mature, and useful. Another weak answer, confidence is necessary. Mistakes happen. People afraid. Practice helps. Connected answer, confidence is necessary because mistakes happen in real speaking. Many learners are afraid of mistakes, so they stay silent. But when they practice every day, they slowly learn that mistakes are normal. As a result, their confidence begins to grow. This answer is smooth because every sentence leads to the next. This is how connection transforms broken English into clear English. Now, connection is not only about using connector words, it is also about keeping the same topic. Some learners use connectors, but they still jump to different ideas. For example, they may say, English is important because it helps communication. Also, grammar has many rules. But vocabulary is difficult. That is why pronunciation is good. This answer uses connectors, but the ideas are not connected properly. The topic jumps too much. A connector only works if the ideas belong together. If your main topic is speaking practice, your next sentences should support speaking practice. If your topic is vocabulary, stay with vocabulary. If your topic is confidence, stay with confidence. Do not jump away unless there is a clear reason. Strong connection is not only grammar. Strong connection is thought control. For example, if your main point is a speaking map helps learners speak clearly, stay on that road. You can explain that it gives direction. You can give an example of answering a question. You can say it reduces confusion. These ideas connect. But if you suddenly start talking about pronunciation, spelling, and exams without a clear link, the answer becomes confusing. Stay on the road. This is why Chapter 2 was about the main point. If your main point is clear, connection becomes easier. If the main point is weak, connection becomes difficult. Every sentence should ask, am I still supporting my main point? If yes, continue. If no, return to the map. Now let us talk about connecting sentences with time order. This is useful when you tell a story or describe a process. Use phrases like at first, then, after that, later, finally, and in the end. These phrases help the listener follow events in order. For example, at first I was nervous when speaking English. Then I started answering one question every day. After that, I recorded my voice and noticed my mistakes. Later, I became more comfortable with simple sentences. In the end, I realized that daily practice builds confidence. This story flows because the time connectors show order. Without time connectors, the same story may sound broken. I was nervous. I answered questions. I recorded voice. I noticed mistakes. I became comfortable. The listener understands, but the story feels dry. Time connectors make it smoother. Use time connectors when you explain your learning journey. At first, I understood English but could not speak. Then I started practicing short answers. After that, I learned to use main point, reason, and example. Slowly, my answers became clearer. Now I feel more confident. This is a strong personal story because it has order. Now let us talk about connecting sentences with problem and solution. This is very useful for English learning scripts, lessons, and conversations. Use phrases like, the problem is, this happens because, the solution is, that is why, and as a result. For example, the problem is that many learners understand English but cannot speak clearly. This happens because their mind has no structure during speaking. The solution is to follow a simple map: main point, reason, example, and finish. As a result, their answers become more organized. This is very clear because the connection follows problem to cause to solution to result. Another example, the problem is not that learners are lazy. The problem is that they practice without direction. That is why they need a routine that trains speaking step by step. This kind of connection sounds powerful because it guides the listener through the logic. Now let us talk about connecting sentences with comparison. Comparison helps you show difference. Use phrases like instead of, rather than, unlike, compared to, and while. For example, instead of translating every sentence, train your brain to answer with simple English patterns. This sentence gives a clear direction. Rather than waiting for perfect grammar, start speaking with clear structure. This sounds motivational and strong. Another example, weak speaking gives random sentences, while strong speaking follows a clear map. This comparison makes the idea memorable. Unlike memorized answers, a speaking map helps you create answers in real time. This is strong because it explains the advantage. Comparison makes your English more powerful because it shows what to stop and what to start. It gives the listener contrast, and contrast creates clarity. Now let us talk about connecting emotional ideas. Many learners can say emotions, but they do not connect them to situations. They say, I am nervous, English is difficult. This is understandable, but not deep. Connected version, I feel nervous when someone asks me a question suddenly because I do not have time to prepare my sentence. This is stronger because it connects emotion, situation, and reason. Another example, I feel frustrated when I know the answer in my mind but I cannot express it clearly in English. This sentence connects feeling and experience. Another, I feel proud when I speak English even with mistakes because it means I am choosing progress over fear. This connects emotion and meaning. Emotional connection makes your English sound real. Instead of giving separate feelings, connect them to reasons and examples. I feel anxious because, I feel confident when, I feel discouraged if, I feel motivated because. These structures make your emotional English stronger. Now, connection also helps you avoid too many short lines in speaking. If every sentence is too short and separate, your English can sound broken. But if you connect ideas, your sentences become fuller and smoother. For example, instead of saying, I learn English, I want confidence, I practice daily, say, I learn English because I want to speak with more confidence. and daily practice helps me build that confidence step by step. This sentence connects three ideas smoothly. However, do not make sentences too long without control. Long sentences need structure. If a sentence becomes too long, break it into two connected sentences. For example, I learn English because I want confidence, and daily practice helps me, and I also need vocabulary, and grammar is difficult, and speaking is scary is too crowded. Better, I learn English because I want to speak with more confidence. Daily practice helps me build that confidence, and stronger vocabulary helps me express my ideas more clearly. This is connected but controlled. Strong English needs balance. Not too broken, not too crowded, connected and clear. Now let us build a full answer using connection. Question: why do learners get lost when speaking English? Answer: many learners get lost when speaking English because their mind has no clear direction. They may know words and grammar, but when pressure comes, they start thinking about translation, mistakes, and pronunciation at the same time. This creates confusion, and as a result, their answer becomes broken. That is why a speaking map is useful. It gives the mind a simple path: main point, reason, example, and finish. This answer is connected from problem to reason to result to solution. Question: how can I speak English more smoothly? Answer: you can speak English more smoothly by connecting your sentences instead of saying separate ideas. For example, do not only say, English is important, I practice, I want confidence. Say, English is important because it helps me communicate clearly, and that is why I practice every day to build confidence. This small connection makes your speaking sound more natural. This answer teaches through comparison. Question: why are examples important? Answer: examples are important because they make your meaning easier to understand. When you give only a general idea, the listener may understand the topic, but they may not see the full meaning. For example, saying practice helps is general, but saying answering one question every morning helps your brain respond faster is much clearer. That is why examples make English more powerful. This answer connects idea, reason, example, and result. This is how connected English sounds. Now let us create a daily practice for connection. Take 3 separate sentences and connect them into one smooth answer. Separate sentences: I want to improve English. I need confidence. I practice daily. Connected answer: I want to improve my English because I need more confidence, and daily practice helps me build that confidence. This is simple but strong. Separate sentences: speaking is difficult. I translate. I become slow. Connected answer: speaking is difficult because I translate before answering, and this makes my English slow. Stronger: speaking becomes difficult when I translate before answering because every extra mental step makes my English slower. This is more natural. Separate sentences: vocabulary is important. Words must be active. I need sentences. Connected answer: vocabulary is important, but words must become active, and that is why I need to use them in real sentences. This sounds clear. Do this exercise every day. It will train your mind to stop speaking in broken pieces. Another exercise is the connector chain. Choose one topic and speak 5 sentences using 5 connectors. Topic: daily practice. Sentence 1 with because. Daily practice is important because fluency grows through repetition. Sentence 2 with for example. For example, speaking for 10 minutes every day can make your mouth more comfortable with English. Sentence 3 with also. It also builds confidence because you become familiar with answering questions. Sentence 4 with but practice must be active, not only reading silently. Sentence 5 with that is why. That is why learners should speak aloud every day. This exercise trains flow. Another connector chain. Topic: speaking fear. Speaking fear is common because learners worry about mistakes. For example, they may know the answer but stay silent because they are afraid of judgment. This creates hesitation, and hesitation makes speaking feel harder. But when learners practice small answers daily, fear slowly becomes weaker. That is why consistent practice is essential. This sounds like real speaking because the ideas connect. Now, another important connection habit is repeating keywords naturally. Repetition can be weak if you repeat without purpose, but it can be strong if you repeat the main idea to keep the answer focused. For example, if your topic is speaking map, you can repeat map in a natural way. A speaking map gives your mind direction. This map helps you start with one clear point, add a reason, give an example, and finish confidently. Without this map, many learners get lost after the first sentence. This repetition keeps the topic clear. Do not repeat random words too much, but repeat the main topic enough to guide the listener. This is especially useful in longer answers. If you speak for 1 minute, the listener should still know your main point. Repeating the key idea helps. Now, connection also depends on pronouns like this, that, it, and they. These small words can connect sentences, but you must use them clearly. For example, daily practice builds confidence. This helps learners speak with less fear. Here, this refers to daily practice building confidence. It connects the sentences. Another example, many learners translate before speaking. This makes their answers slow. This refers to translating before speaking. The connection is clear, but be careful. If you use this after many ideas, the listener may not know what this means. For example, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, confidence, and listening are important. This helps speaking. What does this mean? It is unclear. Better, vocabulary and pronunciation help speaking because they make your message easier to understand. Be specific when needed. Clear connection means the listener always understands what each sentence refers to. Now let us talk about connection in longer speaking. If you want to speak for 2 or 3 minutes, you need paragraph-level connection. This means connecting groups of ideas, not only single sentences. Use phrases like, the first point is, another important point is, the next step is, now let us look at, the final point is, and to bring this together. These phrases guide longer speaking. For example, if you are explaining how to improve speaking, you can say, the first point is that learners need a clear speaking structure. The next step is to practice common questions with that structure. Another important point is to record your voice and notice where you get stuck. To bring this together, speaking improves when learners practice with direction, not randomly. This sounds organized because the listener can follow the sections. This is very useful for videos, presentations, lessons, and long answers. Without section connectors, long speaking becomes messy. With section connectors, long speaking becomes clear. Now let us discuss why connection increases confidence. When your sentences connect, you feel that your English is moving. You do not feel stuck after each sentence. You do not feel like you are starting again every time. The next sentence grows from the previous sentence. This gives your mind momentum. Momentum reduces fear. Many learners lose confidence because every sentence feels like a new challenge. They say one sentence and then think, now what? But if you know connectors, you have options. You can say because to explain. You can say for example to show. You can say but to contrast. You can say that is why to finish. These connectors are like handles. When your mind is falling, you can hold one and continue. This is why connection phrases are not small. They are speaking survival tools. Now, at the end of this chapter, remember this golden truth. Connected sentences create confident speaking. You do not need to speak fast to sound fluent. You need to connect your ideas clearly. A slow speaker with connection can sound more powerful than a fast speaker with confusion. Connection turns separate sentences into a complete answer. It turns broken English into smooth English. It turns random thoughts into organized communication. From today, do not speak sentence by sentence like isolated pieces. Connect your ideas. Use because to give reasons. Use for example to show meaning. Use but to create contrast. Use also to add ideas. Use in other words to explain again. Use this means to define. Use that is why to finish. Use at first, then after that, and finally when you tell a story. Use the problem is, the solution is, and as a result when you explain problems. Train connection every day. Take broken sentences and join them. Create connector chains. Record your voice and listen for flow. Ask yourself, did my sentences connect or did they sound separate? If they sound separate, choose the right connector and try again. The English speaking map is becoming stronger now. You have learned to start with a clear main point. You have learned to add a reason. You have learned to give examples. Now you have learned to connect your sentences so your English does not sound broken. This is how your speaking begins to flow. Not by magic, not by speed, not by memorizing long speeches. It begins to flow because your ideas are connected. And when your ideas are connected, your listener follows you easily. When your listener follows you easily, your confidence grows. And when your confidence grows, English starts to feel less like separate words and more like a real voice moving with direction. Chapter 6. Finish your answer clearly instead of getting lost. Many English learners can start an answer, explain a reason, and even give an example, but then they do not know how to stop. Their answer keeps moving without a clear ending. They repeat the same idea again, add unnecessary words, or finish with weak phrases like "and yeah, that's it," or "I don't know." This makes the whole answer feel unfinished, even if the beginning was good. A clear ending gives your English power. It tells the listener, "This is my final point." It also tells your mind, "The answer is complete." When you know how to finish, you feel more confident because you are not afraid of getting trapped in your own speaking. The final step of the English speaking map is simple. Finish by returning to your main point with a clear sentence. For example, if your answer is about daily practice, you can finish with, "That is why daily practice is the key to speaking English with confidence." If your answer is about vocabulary, you can finish with, "So the main point is that vocabulary becomes powerful only when you use it in real sentences." If your answer is about fear, you can finish with, "That is why learners must keep speaking even when mistakes happen." These endings are not complicated, but they sound strong because they close the answer properly. Use finishing phrases like "that is why," "so the main point is," "the lesson is," "in short," "this is why I believe," and "that is my main answer." These phrases help you stop with confidence instead of stopping with confusion. For example, question, "Why do learners need a speaking map?" You can answer, "Learners need a speaking map because it gives their thoughts direction. The reason is that speaking pressure can make the mind crowded with grammar, translation, and fear." For example, when someone asks a question, the learner may know the idea but not know how to organize it. That is why a speaking map helps learners speak clearly. The ending brings everything back to the main point. A weak ending makes your answer feel like it fell down. A strong ending makes your answer feel like it landed. Many learners speak too long because they do not know how to close. They think more words will make the answer better, but sometimes more words create confusion. A strong answer does not need endless sentences. It needs a clear beginning, clear support, and a clear ending. When the idea is complete, stop confidently. One powerful method is the circle method. Start with your main point, then explain, then finish by repeating the main point in a stronger way. For example, start. Daily speaking practice builds confidence. Explain with reason and example. Finish. That is why small daily speaking practice can create real confidence over time. The answer feels complete because it returns to the same idea. Another method is the lesson ending. After your explanation, finish with "the lesson is." For example, the lesson is that clear English does not come from speaking randomly. It comes from following a simple map. This ending sounds thoughtful and strong. Another method is the short summary ending. Use "in short." For example, "In short, speak with one main point, one reason, one example, and one clear ending." This helps when your answer has become a little long and you want to close it neatly. Do not be afraid of short endings. Sometimes the strongest ending is simple. "That is why practice matters." "That is my main point." "This is how learners stop getting lost." "That is why structure creates confidence." Short endings can sound powerful when the meaning is clear. Now practice finishing answers with common topics. Topic: translation. That is why learners should train direct English thinking instead of translating every sentence. Topic: confidence. That is why confidence grows through action, not waiting. Topic: vocabulary. That is why new words must be used in speaking, not only memorized. Topic: speaking map. That is why a clear map turns confused speaking into organized speaking. A good ending also protects you from repeating yourself. If you feel you are saying the same thing again and again, use a finishing phrase and close the answer. Say, "So the main point is," and finish. This gives you control. At the end of this chapter, remember this golden truth. A clear ending gives your answer confidence. Do not let your English fade away at the end. Do not finish with confusion. Do not keep speaking only because you are afraid to stop. When your point is complete, close it clearly. Start with the main point. Add the reason. Give the example. Connect your sentences, then finish with confidence. Because when you know how to finish, you do not fear speaking longer. You know there is always a way out. You know your answer has a destination, and when your English has a destination, your speaking sounds calm, clear, and powerful. Chapter 7. Practice the speaking map until it becomes automatic. Knowing the English speaking map is not enough. Understanding the steps is not enough. Reading this book is not enough. Real change begins only when the map becomes part of the way you think every time you speak English. The goal is not to remember the map while reading this chapter. The goal is to reach a point where your brain follows the map automatically without asking for permission. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. In the beginning, you think about everything. Where should I put my feet? How do I keep my balance? What if I fall? Every movement feels difficult because your brain is learning a new pattern, but after enough practice, something amazing happens. You stop thinking about the steps. Your body simply knows what to do. English speaking works exactly the same way. At first, you will consciously remind yourself, main point, reason, example, connect, finish. It may feel slow. It may feel unnatural. Sometimes you will forget one step. Sometimes you will stop in the middle of an answer. Sometimes you will realize that you jumped directly from the main point to the ending without giving a reason or an example. That is completely normal. Every fluent speaker once passed through this stage. The mistake most learners make is believing that one good lesson creates fluency. It does not. Fluency is not created by one lesson, it is created by thousands of small repetitions. Every time you answer a question using the map, your brain builds a stronger pathway. Every repetition tells your mind, this is how we speak English. Slowly, the pathway becomes stronger than the habit of translating. Remember this powerful truth: your brain always becomes faster at whatever you repeat the most. If you repeat translation every day, your brain becomes better at translating. If you repeat hesitation every day, your brain becomes better at hesitating. If you repeat confidence every day, your brain becomes better at speaking confidently. This is why your daily practice matters more than your daily motivation. Many learners wait until they feel ready before speaking English. But confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes because of action. The learner who speaks every day becomes confident. The learner who waits for confidence often keeps waiting. Do not ask yourself, am I ready? Ask yourself, did I practice today? That one question can completely change your English journey. One of the best ways to practice the speaking map is through daily questions. Every morning, choose one simple question and answer it using the complete map. For example, ask yourself, why are you learning English? Begin with your main point. I am learning English because I want to communicate confidently. Now give the reason. The main reason is that English gives me more opportunities in work, education, and daily life. Now give an example. For example, if I can explain my ideas clearly during an interview or conversation, I will feel more confident and connect with more people. Now finish. That is why improving my spoken English is one of my biggest goals. This entire answer may take only 40 seconds, but those 40 seconds are training your brain to think in English instead of translating. The next day, choose another question. What is your biggest challenge in English? Main point. My biggest challenge is speaking without translating. Reason. The reason is that I often build the sentence in my first language before changing it into English. Example. For example, when someone asks me a question suddenly, I know the answer, but I spend too much time translating before speaking. Finish. That is why I now practice thinking directly in English. Do this every day. One question, one complete answer, one stronger brain. Another powerful exercise is recording your own voice. Many learners avoid this because they feel uncomfortable hearing themselves speak English, but this discomfort is actually one of the greatest teachers. When you record yourself, you begin hearing things that you never notice while speaking. You notice where you pause too much. You notice where you repeat the same word again and again. You notice where your answer loses direction. You notice where your pronunciation becomes unclear. Most importantly, you notice whether you followed the speaking map or not. Do not record yourself to judge yourself. Record yourself to improve yourself. There is a huge difference. After recording your answer, listen carefully and ask yourself 5 simple questions. Did I start with one clear main point? Did I explain the reason? Did I give a real example? Did my sentences connect naturally? Did I finish with confidence? If the answer to one of these questions is no, do not feel disappointed. Simply record the answer again. Every new recording is another step forward. Another excellent habit is shadow practice. Listen to a short English clip from a native speaker or fluent speaker. Pause after every sentence. Repeat it aloud. Do not only copy the pronunciation, copy the structure. Notice how they begin ideas, explain reasons, give examples, and finish naturally. Soon you will discover that fluent speakers are not creating magic. They are simply following patterns that have become automatic through years of repetition. You can build the same patterns. The difference is not talent, the difference is training. Another mistake learners make is trying to learn everything at once. One day they study grammar, the next day vocabulary, then pronunciation, then idioms, then phrasal verbs, then business English, then IELTS. Their brain becomes overloaded. The English-speaking map teaches a different philosophy. Master one skill before adding another. First, learn to organize your thoughts, then improve your vocabulary, then strengthen your pronunciation, then expand your expressions. A strong foundation supports everything else. Without a foundation, every new lesson feels heavy. With a foundation, every new lesson becomes easier. Do not compare your progress with other learners. Someone else may have studied English for 10 years. Someone else may speak more fluently today. That comparison changes nothing. The only comparison that matters is between today's version of you and yesterday's version of you. If today's answer is slightly clearer than yesterday's answer, you are winning. If today's confidence is 1% higher than yesterday's confidence, you are winning. If today's hesitation is slightly shorter than yesterday's hesitation, you are winning. Small improvements repeated every day create extraordinary results. Many people quit because they expect dramatic improvement in 1 week. Real fluency grows quietly. Just like a tree does not become tall overnight, your English will not suddenly become perfect tomorrow morning. But every day you practice, another root grows deeper, another branch becomes stronger, another leaf appears. One day people will hear your English and think, "You speak so naturally." They will not see the hundreds of small practice sessions that created that moment. They will only see the result. You will know the truth. The result was built one day at a time. There will also be days when you feel that nothing is improving. Do not stop. Progress is often invisible before it becomes obvious. Think about filling a glass with 1 drop of water every day. For many days, the glass looks almost empty. Then suddenly it becomes full. English works the same way. Every practice session is another drop. Every answer is another drop. Every mistake corrected is another drop. One day your speaking overflows with confidence. Trust the process. Do not chase perfection. Chase consistency. Perfection creates pressure. Consistency creates progress. If you speak imperfect English every day, you will eventually speak excellent English. If you wait to become perfect before speaking, you may never truly begin. That is why the most successful English learners are not always the smartest learners. They are usually the most consistent learners. They show up every day. They speak every day. They improve every day, even when they feel tired, even when they make mistakes, even when they feel slow, because they understand one powerful truth. Every sentence spoken today makes tomorrow's sentence easier. As you continue practicing the English-speaking map, something wonderful begins to happen. You stop translating every thought. You stop searching for the perfect first sentence. You stop fearing every mistake. Instead, your mind naturally asks, "What is my main point? What is my reason? What example can I give? How should I finish?" Without realizing it, the map becomes part of your thinking. This is the real goal of this book. Not memorizing information, transforming the way your brain creates English. One day, someone will ask you a question unexpectedly. Months ago, that question would have made your mind go blank. Today, you smile. Your answer begins naturally. Your thoughts stay organized. Your examples come easily. Your ending sounds confident. After the conversation finishes, you realize something incredible. You did not translate. You simply spoke. That moment will not happen because of luck. It will happen because you practiced the map until it became automatic. So from today, make yourself one simple promise. Do not practice until you get it right. Practice until you no longer have to think about it. Because that is the moment when English stops feeling like a subject you study and starts becoming a language you truly speak. You have now reached the end of the English-speaking map, but this is not the end of your English journey. In many ways, this is the real beginning. When you first opened this book, you may have believed that speaking English was about knowing thousands of words, memorizing complicated grammar rules, or sounding exactly like a native speaker. But now you know something far more valuable. Clear English is not built by knowing more. Clear English is built by thinking better. The greatest change does not happen in your vocabulary first, it happens inside your mind. The moment your thoughts become organized, your English begins to become organized. The moment your mind has direction, your words begin to find direction. That is the hidden secret that many learners never discover. Remember where you started. Perhaps you understood English but could not speak. Perhaps your mind became blank every time someone asked you a question. Perhaps you translated every sentence before opening your mouth. Perhaps you knew the words but they never came out at the right moment. Today you have a different way forward. You now have a map. A simple map, a practical map. A map you can carry into every conversation, every interview, every classroom, every meeting, every presentation, and every real-life situation. Whenever someone asks you a question, you no longer need to panic. Find your main point. Explain your reason. Give your example. Connect your ideas. Finish with confidence. Again and again. Conversation after conversation. Day after day. This simple habit has the power to completely change the way you speak English. But remember something very important. Do not close this book and expect your English to change by itself. Knowledge changes nothing until practice gives it life. Your fluency will not be built by reading this chapter once. It will be built every morning you answer one question. Every evening you record your voice. Every mistake you refuse to fear. Every sentence you choose to speak instead of remaining silent. Never measure your progress by comparing yourself with fluent speakers. Measure your progress by asking one question. Am I speaking a little better than I did yesterday? If the answer is yes, you are already moving in the right direction. Some days your improvement will feel fast. Some days it will feel invisible. Keep going anyway. The strongest English speakers are rarely the people with the highest talent. They are the people who refused to quit when progress was slow. They trusted small improvements. They trusted repetition. They trusted the process. You can do exactly the same. Do not fear simple English. Simple English spoken clearly is more powerful than advanced English spoken with confusion. Do not fear mistakes. Every mistake is a lesson your brain will remember. Do not fear slow progress. Slow progress that continues is stronger than fast progress that stops. And above all, never fear speaking. The more you speak, the more your brain learns. The more your brain learns, the more natural English becomes. One day you will be having a conversation and suddenly you will realize something amazing. You answered without translating. You explained your idea clearly. You gave an example naturally. You finished your answer confidently. You did not stop to think about the map, because the map had already become part of your mind. That day will not happen because of luck. It will happen because of every small practice session you completed when nobody was watching, every question you answered, every recording you made, every mistake you corrected. Every time you chose progress over perfection, that is how real fluency is built. Not in one day, not in 1 week, but one conversation at a time, one sentence at a time, one habit at a time. Before you close this book, make one promise to yourself. Promise that you will not wait for confidence before speaking. Promise that you will build confidence by speaking. Promise that you will not translate every thought. Promise that you will trust the map. Promise that tomorrow, no matter how busy you are, you will answer at least one question in English. Because one question every day becomes hundreds of answers every year. Hundreds of answers become thousands of sentences. Thousands of sentences become a confident English voice. And that voice will open doors that today's version of you cannot even imagine. Thank you for spending this journey with English Mindset Academy. If this book has helped you think differently about English, continue your journey with the next book in this series, because every new book is another step toward real fluency. Until then, keep listening, keep thinking, keep practicing, keep speaking, and never forget the most powerful lesson from this book. English is not a language you memorize. English is a path you practice until your mind can walk it without getting lost.